Hello and welcome to the 4Corners podcast. I'm your host, Brad, joined as always by Matt and Shad. Gentlemen, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good.
Doing good.
As on the
Doing
very
better than I was. We'll put it that way.
as on the very verge of tripping over my own words at the start of that.
Unfortunately, have to bend over right now to pet my cat.
Oh yeah, the dog was wanting me to hold her during a meeting yesterday.
All right,
Which
making
cat?
her a video debut.
Which
There
cat
she
is
is.
This is my
that?
cat. Her name is Roxy, and we only have
Oh.
one pet, so just her.
Okay. I have two. I have Junebug and Winnie.
hmm
So
My
oh, go
my
ahead.
wife has been like telling my daughter now for like some time, like, oh, we're gonna like for your birthday we'll get a dog, and my daughter's birthday is in like 2.5 months, and she'll be turning 5. And I'm kind of like, I love dogs. Dogs are really, realistically, probably my favorite animal. I love them. Had dogs when I was growing up, but it's like I don't want a dog right now.
Just get a
Like,
little one.
no, I don't want a dog because my daughter is turning 5, not like 10. Like she's turning 5. It's like who's gonna walk that dog? Me. Like dad's gonna walk that dog or mom.
You could
Like,
get a.
where's that dog gonna fit in with things? Like, I don't.
You could get
Go
I'm
pet that
not.
dog.
I'm not feeling this idea now.
just
Like,
get get like a 3-year-old rescue dog. You don't have to get a puppy. Get one that's already been trained, or if your state has it, because Ohio has it, there are your local prison program might have trained
Oh, yeah.
dogs that the inmates trained. Those are pretty popular
And
here.
they're well trained and taken care of.
Yeah.
brother, I live in the DC metro area. Most dogs that are at the shelter are not. They're gonna be like variations of a pit bull, and I'm not doing that. But you're not feeling it's less like the type of dog or something like that versus like it's more problematic for me to have a dog of any sort. Period. Like I
Yeah.
don't need that right now. I don't think my wife thought this through. Like we're probably gonna have to like it's a long discussion that you guys probably know a little about, but we have to like re-renovate our house, which shouldn't take like a year, hopefully like 4 months, but that has to start at some point in probably the next calendar year from now, like some point within the next like 12 months from now. And it's like, what am I going to do with the dog? If we have to live somewhere, like we got to have a place that has a dog that allows to, I don't know. I'm not feeling it.
Yeah, that can be complicated. So we have we shot for a more laid back show tonight, but we did
Mm,
have a bit of bad news yesterday, and that is Sid Vicious, Psycho Sid, is it UD?
Yeah.
I think so.
Um
Yudi, yeah.
passed away from cancer. I think that was kind of a surprise to a lot of people. I know it was a surprise to me at least. Um
I I think it was a surprise to a lot of people because he, up until recently, and someone even posted a pic that I think was from like 2 weeks ago, he was still doing like signings and shows and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess allegedly it's what his son posted, and some people didn't know if it was true or not. But I mean, the fact that even places like WWE and AEW have been doing like tribute posts on social media, then it's probably true. Obviously, no one has contradicted it. So I guess he had cancer.
I guess if you're
Yeah.
No spec-
I guess if I guess it could make sense though if you're like terminal. It's a good like coping mechanism slash oh like I'm just gonna go meet people that enjoyed my work, like that can be therapeutic and stuff. So maybe that was just kind of his way of coping. But
well, he has at least one child and at
yeah,
least a
because he
couple
was on
grandkids.
he had a kid on Big Brother once because they interviewed him back in like
Hmm.
2012. I saw a video of it when I was looking at stuff of him. Um, and
Uh, he's got at least that one kid and a couple grandkids. He may have more, I don't know, but he has that. So I mean, another reason it's like I don't know how much money he had in the bank, what he was worth, but what if you're gonna die? Like and you know it. Like maybe it's a matter of time. Maybe they have like a strict like 6 months or whatever. Why wouldn't you? And you're still capable of doing some amount of work Yeah, it's at least easy work, like you're just going to conventions or whatever, taking some pictures with people. Like if you could do that, and you maybe even if it's like every weekend you're only doing it, and you're getting like a couple thousand. Okay, well, I mean, maybe that's just more money that you could leave your kids and
Well, and
grandkids.
I
Like,
mean, but I
what if
mean,
I could
it's
work? What if you could work like and get like $100,000 between everything in a year that you can just leave towards like your grandkids? Boom, like your grandkids like college is paid for.
but I
I
mean,
mean, I
I
can
think
understand doing it.
there's also the aspect of yeah, you're getting money, but you know, you're staring down the end, and you get to spend it. I mean, if you can't spend every moment with your family, like you're getting to spend it with people that like appreciated you and like have these like good feelings towards you. Like I think there's a it's time you don't necessarily have to think about it and you get to have like positive interactions with people. And now there's a lot of Sid memes obviously because you know Sid is Sid. But I mean, I have
Mm.
to say I mean, and it might not necessarily be in a positive way, but like he is like I would say he is like an icon of his era.
Mhm.
Like you can't talk about the 90s without talking about Sid. Either some shenanigans he pulled off or, you know, he was like the champion of both promotions. Um and we've talked about him on the show before because we've watched stuff. Like I will say when we watched the UWF, his match with Steve Williams was legit good.
It was kind of shockingly good. I think you had said at the time like he was probably trying to get a job at
Yeah.
either WCW
Yeah.
or WWF/WWE, which I actually think he did. Like
He went
it would depend upon the
to
time.
I think he showed up as Sean's bodyguard.
He did. He was
Which
definitely there in the mid '90s. So I forget when that UWF show was. If it was like '94, it was probably WWF because he was in WCW like '93, I
yeah,
think.
he was there until Starcade '93, I think. Then the whole Arn thing happened
Iron thing.
because he was gonna. I think he appeared with the title because he was supposed to win it.
Um, this is a funny story, and I only know because, but if you know or have seen Craig, who is on sometimes he's on the Brian and Vinny show, Brian Alvarez and Vinny.
Hmm.
He sometimes is like a third person there, and he adds like some thoughts. But he's I've met him in real life a few times because he's part of the whole observer group that oftentimes goes to wrestling shows, WWE shows, AEW shows. Really nice
Hmm.
guy, very nice guy. And I don't know if you have ever heard any of the stories about Brent Kremen, um, who kind of was associated with the Observer Group too. And I've actually met Brent too. Like the first WrestleMania I ever went to in Dallas years ago. Brent was there because the Observer people usually like to do like a big dinner at like a Fogo de Chao or some sort of like Brazilian all you can eat buffet steak place or something of that nature. And he was there, and he's an interesting sort. I would say at least charitably, and I don't think I'm talking out of turn. I would say he's pretty deeply, or I would say he's pretty deeply probably on the spectrum. He's very odd, but I guess Craig told a really funny story on. I know it's like a long-winded setup, but he told a really funny story on Twitter. How I guess that he was at a show with Craig was at a show with Brent, and Brent started and Psycho Sid was on it, and he starts so this is probably like years ago, like in the probably like the '90s, but he was like heckling he's heckling Sid, I guess. And he was close enough, I guess, maybe like near the entrance or something where Sid could obviously see him. He's not like he's like 50 rows back. He was heckling Sid, and Sid's like playing out the crowd, whatever like that. He's like, playing with it. And then Brent goes like, why did you stab like Marty Lund? He's like using like the shoot names and everything like that. And I guess like Sid came over there and was like really like mean mugged him and everything like that. And he like blew him off and started walking away. And Craig goes that Brent took his like full soda and threw it at him. And then Sid like went over to like security and like quietly is like, you need to that guy needs to go. So
Yeah.
Brent got kicked out for doing
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
it's a really funny story. It's kind of silly, but it's also if you knew Brent, it's like that's not outside of the realm of possibility.
That's pretty tame.
The funny thing is that if
I
on
know
Twitter, like Craig, I'm sorry, Brad. Craig put that that story out there on Twitter, and Missy Hyatt, because she knew Brent well, she knows him well, like responded to that and was like, she's just like, I think she says like, I'm not really surprised with this story whatsoever. But it's a good one. But we're gonna say Brad.
Can we talk about? Well, you took me down a side thing. Can we talk about who, like, I want to say is like a legit fan, and probably like one of the best like follows on Twitter is Missy Hyatt. Like when you want to talk about just a straight up wrestling nerd that knows her crap, like even more so, because that's the funny thing. If you ever go back and listen to Scott Hall's interview on Steve Austin's show, like that's one of my favorite Steve Austin interviews, because they're just being a couple of little nerds about it. Because Scott Hall's like, okay, man, like who do you think has like the best drop kick? And like Scott Hall would just keep doing stuff like that. And Missy Hyatt's like that. Like she just knows. And I mean, I'm not talking about mainstream stuff. Like she talks about like Japan. Like she goes deep on that stuff. But I was gonna say, my thing with throwing things at wrestlers. I know Chris Zellner was talking once on a podcast, but think about how his mom and her sister would go to the matches and they'd throw ice at the heels. So,
you know, Matt, for a minute there, I swear, before you said that he chucked the soda at Sid's back, I thought, and the way I thought the story was going to go is he would say something and Sid would whip around and they just hand him a squeegee. You know?
That's my favorite, though. If you listen to old wrestlers, they always say you had to watch out for the old ladies. Like those are the ones that would.
Oh, they don't care anymore. They don't care. They'll do what they want to.
I think that was an old lady. I don't remember the exact setup, but Jim Cornette said like that almost started a riot in Dallas because I think she tried to hit him with a chair, and then she fell over. And because he's the bad guy and an old lady fell over around him, he obviously did it.
Oh yeah.
And I think
they
just
him for it.
And I think like security got it under control, but they like piled into the ring. Because at least you can kind of defend yourself there.
That's to go down slightly further down the rabbit hole. You guys have probably seen the footage, but there's like a great clip online on like YouTube. It's probably easily accessible, but it's when Hogan had turned heel in WCW for the NWO.
Oh,
that one show he did where he was like, there was some old lady in like the front row, whatever, who was just giving him the business.
Oh, he was
like jaw jacking with her, and she was like gonna hit him with this person. He's like really mugging it for the camera,
clawing, swiping at him and stuff.
She's well, no, the funny thing is it was in Knoxville, wasn't it?
I don't know. I don't recall exactly where it was.
That particular lady, though, is a well-known fan of that era. I'm 99% sure, because I think I've seen her on Smoky Mountain shows, and like, but she wasn't like some unknown fan. Like I know that she was like a super fan of that era that went to the matches. Like, so I mean, Hogan did a good job playing up for her, but he might have known her too. Like,
he could have, but he did a perfect job of like really just selling it for her.
Oh, he played it up so well.
Because I bet
Hogan is obviously kind of a problematic individual nowadays, but
I mean, most of those guys are, though.
Hogan the wrestler, the worker, and remains like phenomenal, like top to bottom.
But I imagine, I imagine though, like I know Shad was a worker. I mean, did you ever look through the curtains and you would just see someone be like, oh, oh, we're gonna have some fun tonight because that's a real easy one to rile up.
We would tip each other off. Now, Brad, this might pop you just a little bit. I took the Chuck Taylor route, and I would pick on the kids because the one of the earliest shows I did when I was managing, I'm standing on the outside with BJ there, and we're staring at the faces in the ring. I feel this little hand push me in the back, and so I whip around, and there's this little kid who pushed me, and she's like drawing her hand back, and I looked at her. I said, "Don't you ever touch me!" And like all the other kids clustered around her, and I'm in this moment, I'm like, what do I do with this? And then I went, what are you going to do, huh? And then all of the adults that were near him started getting mad. And I was like, excellent. pick on the little kids. Everyone will hate your guts for that.
Well, they would. Well, with Chuck, sometimes the face would get the kid that he's scared, and they'd chop him and he'd sell. But you had to watch. You had to watch Chuck on indie shows though, because if you weren't watching your water or whatever, he would dive for that and chuck that thing across the building on you.
Which is just so damn funny.
I don't know how much he uses social media anymore, or if he's blocked or whatever. But a favorite subgenre of wrestling Twitter to me has always been Chuck Taylor like trolling Jim Cornette.
Yeah.
There's a famous one out there where Jim Cornette, I think he was probably referencing Chuck Taylor, where he's like a wrestler, someone from like Kentucky, and obviously like Chuck Taylor is from Kentucky, who pretends he's like a pro wrestler, and Chuck Taylor just responds like, "Is it Ricochet?" Because Ricochet is also from Kentucky, and Ricochet is actually like a student of Chuck Taylor. Chuck Taylor is one of his trainers, which is actually obviously we're just a couple days outside of All In, AEW's All In, when Ricochet debuted for the company. And what was really funny and also kind of sweet if you think about it, because he is like his trainer, they've been longtime friends. I guess Chuck Taylor tweeted out a picture of Ricochet when he was like probably like in his teens or early 20s maybe, and he was like, looks nothing like he does now. Looks like just a goofball.
Yeah.
So that's probably like a friendly Chuck Taylor like trolling his friend. Like, and let me post an embarrassing photo of you. It's almost like you post a pic of a good friend of yours from like middle school when they're like super awkward and dorky looking.
Yeah.
But it was actually sweet because obviously Chuck Taylor may be like done in terms of in-ring, but
Yeah, we'll see. I mean,
I saw
there's been crazy comebacks.
Chuck Taylor do that to Jim. I think he did it to Jim Cornette on another case, except instead of saying Ricochet, he said, "What, you mean Hillbilly Jim?"
You know what my favorite Jim Cornette troll was? It was All In one year when Sammy. No, that was the November pay-per-view when Sammy Guevara did the broken verse match with Matt Hardy, and like he fell in like a thing of mud after. That's one of my favorite AEW moments is Sammy Guevara running through a field as Matt Hardy shooting fireworks at him, but he's like, "Oh, Sammy, get up, or an old man will say this is a mud show," and then gives him like the twist of fate.
now I'm like mentally going through like funny Chuck Taylor things.
He's one of the reasons I got back in. Is so I hadn't watched because I kind of got out after the Benoit murders, and someone had a GIF, and it's Ultramantis Black and Chuck Taylor, and Chuck Taylor is coming down this slide, and he runs, and Ultramantis Black chops him right as he hits the bottom of the slide, and it was a car clip. Obviously, I'm like, oh, I have to see this show. Yeah. So I bought the DVD for it, and so they get in a brawl, and they obviously they brawl to the outside, end up in a playground, and that's how I got back in, is because Chuck Taylor got attacked on a slide.
He's a really funny wrestling mind. Sorry to cut you out, Shad.
Okay.
But for those who haven't seen it, just Google or put in YouTube, search for hold on. Basically, Chuck Taylor's list of unused wrestling names. It's like a 10-minute video. I think it's like the 10 minutes I've seen before. It's like that long, but it's funny. The best one, and it's become like an ongoing joke for a lot of people. But the best unused gimmick is "No gimmicks needed." Steve the Samurai.
Yes. That's such a good joke.
It's so clever. Yeah. What were you gonna say? I'm so sorry.
I have actually used two people to help, or three. I'm sorry, three people to get some friends of mine into watching wrestling, and those three people were Chuck Taylor, because it was the dumb bit with him and Archibald Peck where he goes, "I'm gonna drown him," and he throws him into the painting of the pond. And it's like, oh, I didn't do what I meant for it. Chuck Taylor, Dragon, and Swerve Strickland. Those three right there I got a message. It's his husband and wife, I know. I got a message from them one Sunday. And they said, "I watched the entire Strickland Danielson match and got nothing done. What have you done to me?" And I sent back a gift that said, "I'm not sorry, no regrets."
No.
You know what's a good one to get people in is the young bucks kicking the 6-year-old. That one's funny. Because the kid sells it really.
That kid goes down.
Yeah. So
But they sell for him too, is the thing. Like earlier on, like right before they do that, he's giving them the business and they're selling for it.
yeah.
So
So what we're gonna do is we had decided to do a lighter subject. It was kind of short notice, so we are gonna do a Sid show next week. But we're gonna do a hyper focused Sid show. We're gonna do Sid and ECW because we were kind of talking amongst ourselves, but like I think especially like his ECW debut where he just murders Cronus, like is probably like his best moment as a wrestler because he just looks like an absolute psychopath.
it's his best serious moment as a wrestler.
Yeah. Well, no, what I liked about him in ECW because I was watching some of the clips though is like he just doesn't give a fuck. Like he'll come out and he'll save someone and beat up the heels, and then he'll just murder them afterwards because like he doesn't like he's just a force of absolute chaos, which I like that as a concept, and I wish like they kind of did that with Sting for a while before he kind of chose a side in WCW. Like it's a real untapped, I think, idea in wrestling, like just the absolute chaotic, doesn't care about anything guy. So
Well, when I say serious, I'm referring to things like, "I'm sorry, can we start over?" and "We're live, pal," and then he just throws the switch and goes right back into character, or "Goldberg,
yeah,
Goldberg," like that is hysterical. I can't get over it.
I always think of Planet of the Apes when he's got his arms up in the air, like you blew it up.
Goldberg, you blew it up.
Yeah. So that's gonna be next week. This week we're doing lighter stuff. This is not going to be very wrestling oriented this week. Well, it's kind of got a wrestling tinge, but we're kind of doing an off subject. So our first topic though, because Sid was the first one, so we're gonna do a Sid show next week. We wanted to acknowledge it though. Like I said, there's an it factor to Sid that I few people have.
Yeah, he had a crazy charisma, and just the word again is kind of overused nowadays, but he had like an aura about him. Like, and he did have this like chaotic energy. He visually, and we'll talk about it next week, but visually, like, there's probably fewer guys who have just purely look like what you would expect a wrestler to look like than, like a 6'7", 6'8" dude, jacked to the gills, coming in there and just like choke slamming the hell out of everyone, like tossing them around. Like that's what you would expect like a monster to look like.
And just absolutely crazy promos. The USWA one I sent you guys where he's kind of almost low key. I was like, he's even good like when he's kind of not a total crazy person. My favorite though is the one we've talked about before. Is it's right before the WrestleMania 8, and it's like they're doing this solemn. This is Vince McMahon going, "Thank you for Hulkamania," and Sid's like, "I place a curse on you." So anyway, our first topic though, this is a three-prong question. So they're kind of so these are going to be about cartoon TV specials, which are kind of a dead idea. So back in the ye olden times when we were kids, you'd get random, like there'd be a Garfield TV special in prime time. So we have it's a three-prong question. So it's going to be for three specials. It's going to be for Peanuts, Garfield, and Dr. Seuss. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, Dr. Seuss, so during the 70s into the 80s, they did a bunch of the books as like animated specials. Usually half hour. I would say the movie remakes are not as good as the original half hour ones. Because I think brevity is better in a lot of cases. And things like with the Lorax, they showed the Wutzler, which ruins the.
Why?
Well, yeah, I know. I don't get why. I don't know if media doesn't like gets like really weird with that now or something. But so anyway, let's start with let's start with let's do Dr. Seuss first because I think Dr. Seuss will be the quickest of them. So who wants to throw out what they think?
I'm going to full bore admit that across all of these, I'm going to seem super basic, but I'll explain why. For this one, though, for me, because I remember when, what was it called? It was the one with the butter side up, butter side down Cold War analog.
God, oh, the Better Butter Battle or something like that. Butter Battle.
The Butter Battle book. That's right. Thank you for
Butter Battle book. Yeah.
Thank you for kickstarting my brain.
I'm looking it up on Wiki, which was actually done by Ralph Bakshi. This was a Bakshi production. Interesting. I never saw that.
It looks straight. I mean, all of these look straight up like the illustrations in the book do. I remember when that one first aired on TV, the Butter Battle book. And even as a second grader, I think as a second grader, I kind of understood some of the Cold War overtones of the time and stuff. But if you want best Dr. Seuss special, I'm still going to say How the Grinch Stole Christmas. You've got Vincent Price. You've got just
no, it was it was
Boris Karloff.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, sure. I don't. Why did I say Vince? It was Boris
Karloff.
Because it would have been
Boris Karloff.
Have either seen Ed Wood? Oh.
So the running gag in that is because he's working with Bela Lugosi, and Lugosi just hates Karloff, which isn't true. That is a dramatization from what I've read, but like he just freaks out about Karloff. But it's a good movie. You should definitely see it because it's instantly like quotable. Like, let's shoot this fucker.
Yeah.
And where he has to like they're shooting a movie and it's it should have won an Academy Award that year, honestly. But like the octopus breaks, so he has to like get in the water and like roll around like this octopus is killing him. Like it's very satirical, but it's great. It's Tim Burton did it, and I think
Tim Burton
and Johnny Depp is Ed Wood, isn't he?
Ed Wood. He's Ed Wood. Martin Landau is Bela Lugosi.
Yeah, and
there's
George
the scene I'm referring. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
George the Animal Steals Tor Johnson, which is a great casting call.
Yeah. The scene I was referring to right now was it was like a fan or someone comes up to Bela Lugosi and like wants his autograph, so he's like all happy, like signing his autograph, and the person's like, "Yeah, I loved you in like this movie with Boris Karloff in it." Like it's like and Martin Landau's like, "Karloff? Fuck you!" He just likes railing at the guy because he hates Boris Karloff.
Yeah,
irrationally hates him. Like can't even hear his name without going off. But
if you want a real mind fuck, it was just on Svengoolie. There's I think it's called The Terror. There's a movie from the '60s that has Jack Nicholson and Boris Karloff in the same movie. If you want,
I can only imagine the curtain chewing going on.
Boris Karloff, how old was he in that?
He was in a wheelchair. That was like one of his last roles.
Just as a quick aside about Boris Karloff, there was on a TV show at one point, and no footage exists anymore because it's been lost to time, but there was on a TV show a performance of Boris Karloff doing the Monster Mash, like doing the song, instead of Bobby Pickett doing it. And that's one of those things I would have liked to have seen. But it's the thing about How the Grinch Stole Christmas is it's one of those things where it's a lot like the book. It stays very tight on what's happening. It doesn't stack in extra characters or create new motivations or anything like that, which lets it stay truer to the message. And it doesn't get all cluttered. You know, it's not the Jim Carrey, Ron Howard one where it's just like, good Lord, what is happening here?
I hate
the even worse, to be on as an adaptation, even worse, the Benedict Cumberbatch one, which is just God.
I like the
So
Benedict Cumberbatch
sad.
one more than the Jim Carrey one, but the Benedict Cumberbatch one I just felt was kind of soulless in its.
Yeah. Like
So
it takes away from the point even more.
so the last couple years, my daughter has been like obsessed with watching The Grinch. It's because like she she was supposed to watch like the original How the Grinch Stole Christmas,
Hmm.
and at her daycare because now she's in school, but they watched it when she was still in her daycare,
Yeah.
and I think the woman who was trying to play it wasn't able to do it for some reason, so she played like the Jim Carrey one, which it's like my daughter's probably like 3 when she watched it. It's like this a 3-year-old should not be watching this. It's not like, the worst, but my daughter came home and was like, "Yeah, we watched the Scary Grinch movie." I'm like,
Yeah.
"What the hell is a Scary Grinch?" And it's like there was explosions and this Grinch was scary.
Yeah.
And my daughter to this day is still like, she's sometimes if she gets scared at night because she's 4, she's like I got scared. I'm like, why? There's a monster. Like, there's no monsters in the house. She's like, yeah, there's a Grinch that lives in my closet. And I'm like, no. But the last year, we actually watched like the Benedict Cumberbatch one, and I
Mhm.
didn't mind it. Maybe I like Jim Benedict Cumberbatch. I can understand where you're like, oh, it's soulless. I don't think it's soulless, but I can see where it's like I enjoyed it, but it's also not like this is this classic
It's
Christmas movie that I'm going to
disposable.
keep watching every year.
Yeah.
It's disposable. I thought it was fine. I thought Benedict Cumberbatch was fine. I like Benedict Cumberbatch. I thought that it was fine, but it also wasn't like this is the best animated movie I've seen.
Yeah, it was like I watched it and I was like, if I was like I was like, oh, this was competent, and then I promptly like completely forgot about it and never felt the need to watch it again.
It to me, that one misses the point of the original even worse than the Jim Carrey one does. And then also, I mean, I completely understand the Grinch hating the Who's in that one because they like that opening sequence where he goes into town to the grocery store. They are dicks to him like the entire time. It's like, dude, I get it. I may not like, but I understand. Whereas, if you go back to the original, which was only a half hour, which is all it took, because you weren't cramming in other characters and other motivation, and it's like, oh, we need a single mom storyline and that sort of stuff. You don't have to do all of that. You can go straight to the point of the story you're trying to tell.
It doesn't. I think what messes up with the longer adaptations is the more you try to complicate the Grinch, the worse it gets. Like the more you try, like it only works on like a very base level. Who did the animation for that? Because I can't think of his name off the top of my head. But like if you've seen his other stuff, like
The original one?
yeah, because he did Tom and Jerry for a while. Because Tom and Jerry, like there are some cartoons that are in the same style.
Chuck Jones.
Yeah, Chuck Jones.
Wow, yeah.
I was about to say like
Well, he's most famous for doing Looney Tunes.
yeah, but it definitely has his flair of like style to it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Chuck Jones is one of like the royal family of classic animation. So
Yeah,
For the Jim Carrey one, I really don't like it, and it's also if you watch it, it's such a product of the time. Like it's. Well, let me see when was that made? That was made like probably 2000 or around then.
I do like when he's doing his he's like, when they invite him to the thing, he's like, well, I'm doing like this, like I just can't skip dinner with me again. It's like solve world hunger, like
Yeah,
tell no one.
That was a great he's going through his calendar. It's like 5 o'clock, solve world hunger, tell no one.
Yeah.
That's like
6
a
o'clock.
clever
I
throwaway.
think you know what I think.
Yeah.
You know what I think. You know why I think I hate the Jim Carrey one is just because it's so uncanny valley. Like the Who's are just disturbing to look at in that.
It's
movie.
Uncanny Valley.
the
It
thing
was
that
made in 2000.
the thing that I give credit to for the Carrey version is that, I mean, it's not new. The idea is not new. That it's like, oh, people get too, consumerist or materialistic around Christmas. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, you're not breaking new ground here, But then on the other hand, there are parts of it there are also parts of it that are not for kid. You know, kissing a dog's anus is not
No,
should not
I
be in a
mean,
kids
and
movie, but
it's not as
but
bad as Cat in the Hat with Mike Myers was. That was just not
oh wow.
child appropriate, and that got the Dr. Seuss estate to say no more live adaptations, which they
Yeah.
stuck to.
But there's some stuff in that one that's, you know, actually funny or, you know, amusing. And the other one, I'm just like, okay,
I think the
oh, that's
problem.
cute, but I'm not amused by it.
I think what Matt's trying to say with it's a product of its time is it's very cynical. It has it has that very
Well,
late '90s to mid aughts cynicism about it,
cynical, but it's also like it has that kind of like
nihilistic outlook on.
yeah, but it does, but it's also there's like a I don't know how to describe it. It's a little bit of the '90s like nihilism, but also has like the 2000 like new era where it's like almost like self-referential, like joking, like
Yeah.
it's weird. It's to me like there are certain things that like scream like that era to me. What was the horror movie we watched not that long ago? Oh, this past Halloween.
Yeah, Cocaine
it
Bear?
No,
Was
it was the one.
Lee
It was the
Sobieski or something?
it was the
Joyride?
yeah, it was the one where
Joyride.
Optimus Prime was the killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like that's kind of like around the same era, early 2000. And it's like this seems
Yeah.
very early 2000s, like the fashion and like everything.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't care. I don't care for live action. I don't really. Just speaking in general about Dr. Seuss, I probably have seen like Horton Hears a Who and maybe the Lorax, but I can't say I've seen those like multiple times. Like the
So
only one I've seen multiple times is Grinch. For me, I would pick the Grinch of those.
So this is just a product of the time I was alive. So I had these on VHS, so I saw them all the time. And because what would happen back in the day if you had cable, and you had a VCR, what your parents would do if they were very industrious is if you got a free weekend with HBO, they would have the VCR running all the time, and you get a shitload of movies on VHS. So I had all of those on VHS from like an HBO preview.
Kids nowadays, people nowadays, you have no idea. Like, but that was us. That was me. That was our generation. Like, it's like you would hear like, oh my God, free weekend. You would like live for the free weekend because like they would do it like maybe a couple times a year. It's like I got my stack of blank VCR tape,
VHS, yeah.
and it's like you just play it in there, 6-hour recording, go, and then like you would pour it all weekend long.
Yeah, because what people I don't think younger people know. So when we were kids, like a VHS of a movie was like $50.
Which today now like $50 would not be cheap, but also like think about the time, like in cost inflation, like $50 is not $50.
That's like $200 now, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot more.
It was a big outlay for that, yeah.
Yeah, because if you watch like you have to get like the actual like original the VHS copies of like a pay-per-view, but like if you watch like old Crockett, you know, VHSs of like the pay-per-views, they'd be advertising other tapes like, oh yeah, you can mail in for this $59.99 plus shipping and handling. It's like, oh my God.
Yep.
So usually like a lot of us, we just had stuff taped because blank VHSs weren't super expensive. And that's also how, because people used to be like, why would people join like Columbia House? I'm like, because like if you did your due diligence, you got like 10 movies for like $20, which was an insanely good deal. And you just had to like pay for 2 others or something. That's why you did it. But yeah, so I've seen most of them, and I would say, so mine would probably be the Lorax.
Which I remember that one when it came out.
Which I think like it's got a good message to it. Like I think you could show it to a kid and it'd still be culturally relevant. The idea of like conserving and it's a fun little watch. I think the original Cat in the Hat's pretty good. I think it's Dr. Seuss on the Loose that has green eggs and ham, and the Sneetches is probably my second favorite.
Just Shad, maybe you've
Yeah.
done this, but for those who are like an adults and have small children,
Hmm.
have you tried reading to them that Fox book, Fox with Socks?
I
I don't know if
refuse.
I've done Fox with Socks. I've done Hop on Pop, at which point I stop and go, no. Like after every time they do not stop. You must not hop on Pop.
Fox with Socks
Is brutal.
it's it is actually, I would say, like, no, this is Dr. Seuss on some bullshit. It's him actually engaging what I can only imagine to be like actual sadism, because it's like I am an educated individual. I've you know I have a undergraduate degree, I have a law degree. I'm not a dummy, but it's like some of this, it's like, come on, like I can't print, like you've acted me to basically, I could cut off my tongue and pronounce this better than some of the linguistic
Yeah.
tricks that he pulls in that. It's like, I don't like that book. I got it. My daughter got it from like the library, and I'm like, no, I'm
Hmm.
not doing this again.
I,
Just stick
as
to like Cat and Hat.
Well,
as an aside, The Hill I Will Die On is the greatest children's book ever, and it will always be the greatest children's book. Is There's a Monster at the End of the book, and it has to
Yes.
be Grover, not that lame one they have with like Elmo or whatever. It's the Grover.
no.
Like,
They did one with
Yes.
Elmo. It's not. No,
yeah,
I've actually my daughter owns that. We bought that for my daughter because that is probably my favorite kids book too, and I have read that multiple times to her.
Yeah.
And when I do it, depends. Obviously, if it's like late at night, she wants to read, and it's like, I love you, but I just want to go downstairs. Um, if I actually have time and I'm feeling it, I will do like, I'll make a big production out of it. I don't do the Grover voice because I can't do Grover.
Oh no! I told you not to turn the page, and you did it anyway.
That's not a bad Grover.
Thank
That
you.
isn't-
There's
Yeah,
another one that I like, Matt. That's called Wonky Donkey, which you can have a lot of fun, kind of sing-songing your way through. Which my kids really liked. Just as an aside, Wonky Donkey is harmless, but it's fun to do. In Inky Pinky Stinky Dinky Wonky Donkey. So, and there's a song. There's actually a song that'll go with it. So, in any event, we got two for Grinch and one for Lorax.
yeah.
Although I do remember getting to the end of Lorax, and you get to the end of it, and as a kid, I was just like, oh.
Yeah, it's not
sad at the end.
Because he just kind of grabs himself and goes up into the air. Because it's kind of the Onceler recounting the tale.
Yeah.
So let's do Garfield next. I don't know if we'll have.
Okay.
So Garfield has what I would say is some absolutely horrifying moments as a child. So there's two there's two in particular I'm kind of going between, and they both have terrifying moments. So there's the Halloween special with the ghost pirates, and then what I would say is even more horrifying is if you've seen, I think it's Garfield in the Rough. It's when they go camping and they get attacked by a panther. I'm not joking.
Oh, good Lord.
Look it up. It's pretty terrifying. So those would probably be my two favorites. I'd say probably the Halloween special. I love the Halloween special. Just when they're like going around and like pulling the masks, and sometimes it's an actual monster, and they like freak out and start like running around in circles. And his whole scheme is to have Odie go with him to get more candy.
Yeah. I remember that one. Actually, we have that. We have the DVD that has that on it.
Yeah, I think that one has it. What else is on that? Is it?
It had the Christmas special, the Halloween special,
the
and
Thanksgiving special, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
There's also one of like Garfield Through the Ages, and that one I hate because there's this like segment with this woman talking about her cat, and it finally gets old and dies, and it's terribly depressing.
I think that's Garfield His 9 Lives.
Yeah, that one. Avoid that one.
Yeah, I actually read the book because I loved Garfield as a kid. So I would like for the library, I would rent like the collections of his stuff, and they had that as like a book, and I read it, and some of the artwork on those is pretty good. It's like
experimental in a degree.
Yeah, but yeah, some of the stories are kind of like, this isn't like comedic. It's almost like dark and sad.
Yeah.
So I didn't care for that as much. So yeah,
There's a lot to pick
maybe
from the
like
Garfield specials, honestly.
I would maybe pick like Garfield Christmas. Uh, because it's nice. Like it's kind of lighthearted.
It has a
It
I'd
has
probably
it has its moments of sadness though, because Grandma talking about
missing Grandpa.
yeah, and him finding letters like, but that also has the greatest Christmas present ever that I would totally be down for if someone made for me is Odie making the back
The
scratcher.
back scratcher. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I like. Yeah. Okay. Full disclosure. A big part of this comes out of the fact that my dear darling wife, who I love, who is one of the kindest people on the planet, is one of those Christmas people. Like the folks that the 365 day a year Christmas stores is made for.
You mean
So,
the people that watch the Hallmark Christmas channel nonstop?
you know what? She actually doesn't do that much. Although, if you want to be
Brad,
really amused,
go
her
ahead, John.
favorite one of those Hallmark style Christmas movies is Melissa Joan Hart and Mario Lopez in Holiday in Handcuffs, where she kidnaps him, straight up kidnaps him with the threat of like a Revolutionary War flintlock or something. It's a weird ass movie.
You know what? You know what
I
my favorite part
feel
about
like I've actually seen big parts of that, if not most of the whole movie. And I don't know why, because it's not as if I saw that. Oh yeah, I saw that. Like
Dude, you
maybe
know why
20
you
years
saw
ago.
that. You know why you saw that. Friend of the show, Christy Petrillo, had a movie that had AC Slater in it and made you watch it with him, didn't he?
I didn't watch that with
We-
him, but I feel like I did watch it because for some reason, maybe it was like there was a hype about it, so I watched some of it because it was on, and it
Just
was
giving
like,
you
it
a
was
hard
the
time,
weirdest-
Chris.
he's
It's
the
a very
most
weird thing.
Mario Lopez is probably the most successful of the Saved by the Bell alumni when you look at like the totality of his career. Like I don't think he necessarily had the heights of like Tiffany Amber Thiessen, but like for someone that's worked consistently, like
He's worked pretty much consistently,
yeah.
I think.
Fun
Mark
fact,
Paul Gosselaar probably has a higher peak too, in the sense that a lot of his stuff is a little more high profile.
but I
But
feel
Mario
like he comes
Lopez
and
has like
goes.
yeah, it's true. That's why like it hides. That's why I say higher peak, because it's like he may come and go, but the stuff that he comes with may be like here's like a show that's on like network TV. You know, it
Yeah.
lasts like a couple seasons maybe, but you were on network
Mhm.
TV. But I think you're right. Like Mario Lopez has like consistently been doing either like low budget movies, but he also
Or
has like talk show.
daytime talk TV.
Yeah, or he's the guy that it's like we have like this award show for someone, we need someone to host, like that could be you, and he does it.
Yeah.
And so he does like commercials, everything like that. He's still around. Like
Yeah. Fun.
Doesn't he work for like E or something?
I don't know.
the
at this
E
point.
Network.
He was.
I remember there was a lead in. He was doing an interview with Ryan Reynolds in the lead into the first Deadpool movie. He's like, we're going to be doing we wanted to make it PG-13 so it'd be more accessible. And then obviously Reynolds in Deadpool walks in behind him and takes a TV camera and whacks Mario Lopez on it and leans down. He goes, "Don't worry, Jesse. Slater can't hurt you anymore." And
I
walks
remember that one.
away.
Fun Melissa Joan Hart fact though is she is a big wrestling fan, and I found that out because I believe Kevin Owens blocked her on Twitter at one point.
But wait, was that Melissa Joan Hart or
Yeah, it was Melissa Joan Hart.
wait? Who's the other? I think Daniel Fishel is kind of one, but there's
They don't-
somebody else.
They don't have the balls to block Macaulay Culkin.
Was it? It's not Amy Smart. Who is it? Because there's another. You would not expect actress who's a big wrestling fan.
No, I know who you're talking about. It's she was on the Community or Parks and Recs. I can't remember her name, but she was a mega fan. Like she was a PWG like regular.
Is it Jillian Jacobs?
Yes. She
Okay.
is a PWG mega fan.
Retta's in this. Okay.
Like she used to like she was a noted like she went to all the PWG shows.
That's actually really cool. I knew it was one. I knew the name was in my head somewhere, but I couldn't put a
Yeah.
finger on it.
No, like because you just think, oh, you're a WWE fans. Like, no, I like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. Like, oh, okay. I'm like, you have my
Uh,
attention.
what's
Oh, and
there,
Andy Richter used to be what they said when he was on the sets of Conan O'Brien back in the day. He always had the newest Wrestling Observer with him.
Oh,
mm,
really?
Yeah, like that was a
I was
noted.
gonna I was gonna say like the guy who was on. Well, I guess he was going to play Deadpool in the DC Universe movies, but Joe Maggiano or whatever his name is, like
Deathstroke.
Deathstroke. Yeah,
Yeah.
Deathstroke. Sorry, and he was on True Blood back in the day, but he used to be like a big PWG guy. He brought his then wife Sofia Vergara to it. There's like some funny like IG or tweets that she sent out where like guys like selling in the ring and she's like taking a picture with them and the tweet is like I think he's dead and it's like her smiling in front of like some dude who's obviously just selling on the mat. Um, it's funny. Garfield. Anyway,
Oh,
Yeah.
back to Garfield.
it just is a last celebrity one, but also it was on Bill Simmons' podcast. He had Luke Perry on once, and Bill Simmons I think um, had something wrestling related, and Luke Perry like points it out. So if you don't know, Luke Perry grew up in Mansfield, Ohio, and he's talking about like he's like, yeah, we were driving by some armory once. He's like, the doors open. He's like, and I see like, and it's like the first time he'd ever been like exposed to wrestling. Like, I see like Kevin Sullivan like lifting some guy over his head to like slam him, and like he's like, I run into this arena and like I've just been enraptured by wrestling ever since. And I mean, obviously his son became a wrestler, and um, sad that he died so young. I think he would really be getting a kick out of.
He absolutely would. We would not have gotten the Christian Cage angle, I don't think, but
Yeah. So Shad, I think you're the last one for the Garfield special.
it's look, I told you, I'm going to be basic as hell, and it's still going to be the Garfield Christmas special. They have the family has like real family dynamic stuff to it. Garfield being grumpy about not being home on Christmas Day, it's like, gee, I kind of get that too. Grandma being kind of awesome, she's like, no, you're playing the piano wrong, and like shoves him out of the way to start playing. And then the one that I didn't expect that still tickles me is two full grown men, John Arbuckle and his brother, lean into their parents' room and go, we open presents, and their dad goes, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, technically it's Christmas morning. No. And it's like, you know, I'm the dad now, but I get it. You know, like there's just a lot of really great heart in this that I really enjoy that. Like the Halloween special does something I would not have expected a Garfield Halloween special to do. The Thanksgiving special is nice. There's just more heart in the Christmas one, and I like that.
Okay, so let's go to. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Well, before we move on for Garfield, two things. One, Brad, whether it's canon or not, I like your theory that the cast of U.S. Acres is actually just the animals that
you know,
are
it's funny. I was about to make
farm
that
for
joke. Yeah.
John's parents. Yeah, it actually seems like it's plausible. So the theory, but I can see it being true. But
Do you remember the
second
one
thing was,
where Sheldon was supposed to hatch, and he hatches, and he's just another egg under the egg?
oh yeah, that's a funny one. The
Who
other
was
thing
that
was like, I don't
Sheldon?
know, you guys probably haven't seen like the Garfield movie that came out
No.
earlier this year.
No,
It actually is not bad.
that's what I heard.
It actually was pretty entertaining because we took our oldest daughter. She's only been to 2 movies in theaters ever in her life, but that was the second one. And we took her to it, and it was perfectly fine. It was cute. I still, I don't really like Chris Pratt as Garfield. My brain, it doesn't work. It's like Garfield, the voice, it's either Lorenzo Music, who's no longer living, or it's Bill Murray.
Well, that's
Like, I don't
because
like Chris Pratt.
the Lorenzo Music Bill Murray as Garfield thing is so hilarious because Lorenzo Music really kind of got traction as a voice actor by kind of being a Bill Murray imitator because he took over Peter Venkman in Ghostbusters. So then Bill Murray kind of doing Lorenzo music, um, was kind of like a weird circular thing. But I remember when I was a kid before he died, like there used to be, um, Lorenzo Music used to do like radio commercials.
Hmm.
I remember
I think he did like a country crock butter commercial.
Yeah, yeah. Because that's why I think. Speaking of commercials, that's how the Ernest character started. He used to just go look it up on YouTube. Like he hawks all sorts of stuff. Like I think he did
Yeah.
like Dr Pepper, um, a bunch of stuff. I remember those when I was a kid too.
Yeah, that was. Yes, that was where his whole start came from. So.
Yeah. So we're gonna go to Peanuts last. You can include the animated movies if you want. I think they're
I
fair
haven't
game.
seen them, so I won't. They won't be on my.
I'm gonna go a little afield, but it's still gonna be basic. I'm gonna do the Thanksgiving special for mine.
The Thanksgiving is really good because I do love the fact that they tackle the fact that Peppermint Patty just invited herself over, and so what Charlie and Snoopy throw together at the last minute ain't going to be up to scratch. And then
it's such a Peppermint Patty thing.
what's Peppermint Patty's
Marcy.
Yeah, Marcy like just calls her out bigger than anything in front of everybody on it. And I'm like, you know what?
Did they bring Franklin with them?
Franklin was in it.
Okay.
I don't know where he came along, but he was in it.
I think he was in the car with them at the end, so I think he came. I think he tagged along because he was always. This is going too deep into the lore, but like I think in the comic strips, Franklin was like on her baseball team. I know Franklin was like in the Peppermint Patty like state like in her orbit of like in her social circle.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the Peanuts Thanksgiving special is really good.
I actually kind of want to know that. I wonder if he was like one of the first black characters ever in like the daily comics.
He was. Charles Schultz put him in there and whenever people got upset, he went, fine, don't read it. I don't care. I'm going to do this. And he did. And he didn't get more pushback on it. So that's a... I don't want to sound like I'm trying to be what I'm not, but that is an OG move, is what that is.
Well, that I was seeing an interview with I don't remember his character on Mister Rogers, but the was he a male? No, he was a police officer.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name though. And he was talking about that and like, some of the stuff.
Both sitting in the with their feet in the kiddie pool,
and all the things like he was talking about like. He would have all these hesitancies and how Mr. Rogers was being so subversive with like his messaging and like that sometimes he didn't get it until like after the fact and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, it's Mr. Rogers, man. That's all you can say. It's Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers made the entire room full of Hollywood cry once. With like 10 seconds of words. Like he's the man. All right.
He is. He is.
Mr. Rogers forever, Hell, I got a Mr. Rogers sweater upstairs in my closet, all right?
Let's see. So I'd say the Peanuts. I don't have a great memory of a lot of the Peanuts ones other than like the holiday specials and yeah, just the holiday specials because I get it mixed in. Like once it had like the series, I kind of get that stuff mixed up. So I like Halloween. I would think would be it for me. Maybe the Valentine special. They've done like newer versions of a lot of like there's like Christmas special sequels and stuff, and those all kind of suck. I don't feel like Peanuts has been good since Schultz died.
I'd probably maybe go like the Thanksgiving one. Although I do like the Halloween one a lot.
I'm basic. I can't I can't not pick the Christmas special for that one. It does so much stuff. Like they did it with no budget. They had child actors for it, and so everything is super basic. But it just has so much heart. So
Beefy mentioned the Peanuts movie. I don't think I've seen that. Is that the
I haven't seen
the
that one.
I haven't seen it yet.
is that the computer animated one?
I've heard that it's really good and really sweet and that sort of stuff, but I just haven't seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either. I haven't really digested a lot. I've always meant to reread all the comics at some point. I'm due for a reread of Calvin and Hobbes too. That's like
Mm.
I reread that every like 5 or 6 years. Beefy says yes. Okay, so we're gonna get to our main subject of the evening, and that is gonna be so essentially the idea is um I don't know. It's kind of like the running gag. Like it's the who was like the world champion of your action figure wrestling promotion when you were a kid. So it's basically just um, it's kind of just excuse to talk about our toys when we were a kid or what we liked or what our cherished possessions were.
So why don't you guys kick this off?
I guess I'll start because mine will be quick. So I would say probably there'd be two. So it'd be Optimus Prime, like the original one, was my favorite as a
For
kid.
tra-
Yeah, Transformers.
oh wait, are we just action figures or like who you're?
It would be Optimus Prime if it was my action figure wrestling promotion. It would be Optimus Prime. But then also it would probably be the spoiler every now and then. But so there's a couple versions, but I'm talking about the metal Voltron that you could have murdered someone with as a child.
Yeah, I you know, so I actually think that I'd heard that they either have made new Voltron toys or are going to,
They've
but
re-released the metal one a couple times over the years.
uh, I I had mine. I did have Voltron as a kid. I don't know how I got it. My parents must have bought it. I almost feel like they bought it like a yard sale or something because it's like I don't recall them buying like the individual lions and
I think it just
reconstructing
came.
it.
I think I think the metal one came is like a singular thing. I don't. I think.
Mine was not metal because I would have known
Did you
like
have
the
did you
dangerous
have the
aspects of it.
did you have the plastic one where like you could get the little figures of the pilots and put them in?
So that's why I feel like maybe my parents got it as like from like a yard sale or something because like I did have plastics and I had all of them and I had them mostly I've had them like largely constructed as Voltron. Occasionally I would like take it apart and have like the individual line. I liked the Voltron as like, you know, a giant mecha. But I didn't have like little figures, so I don't know if it's like they originally came with it and I just
No, you got
that
that.
was
So the Voltron line was weird. So you had like the metal version, but then you had a plastic one, but then you had like the explorers each had a figure that you could put in there. I don't think Sven had one, but then like Zarkon and all those had ones. But then they had like a couple of I don't know why they did this, but like the monsters they had a couple of those like tiny, and then you could get like the coffins and some vehicles too. Uh, it was a weird kind of line. The figures were very tiny though.
I never had.
I had the blue line. That was it.
And there was
I
Car
so
Voltron too, because they did that weird like they brought two different series over and like tied them together in the same universe. They did that with Macross slash Robotech. They put
mm,
three series together to make like a 65 episode series.
mm. I for Voltron, like I remember having that, and because I had that and like loved it as a kid, I probably would buy like a version if they put out. I thought they had like I think Target, maybe it was a Target exclusive. Like I think they're putting out like the Lions. Like if they do that, and they combine to be like, Voltron, I would buy that as long as it's within reason. If it's like I could get everything for like $100 or something, like okay,
All right,
if it's
to Amazon.
like,
Hang on just a second.
each one's like $50 or something, I'd be like,
Well, I mean, there's
I don't
probably
know about
something recently because the Amazon show was successful.
that. Hmm.
Oh, that's disheartening. Okay.
Is it like
Yeah. Oh my
$300?
God. Okay.
Oh
Wow.
What's the
Yeah.
price point?
So. Okay. Let's see. Voltron classic combining blue action figure lion, $100. Black classic lion figure, $50. Voltron GX71 SP Go Lion Voltron Chogokin 50th anniversary version Bandai Spirits of the Soul figure, $360.
That's probably an import. That's probably why that's so expensive.
Well,
it's probably,
I mean,
it's probably a statue too.
well then there's one that the GX71 kicks up to $500.
Those are probably
And
statues.
there's $550. And there's I'm not seeing like DreamWorks Voltron Legendary Defender set. Let's see, that's not available. Whole set for that looks like you can buy versions of it for like $130. But I mean,
So
still,
Chad,
yeah,
That's reasonable.
Chad, I went on the Target app,
yeah. Oh,
and
I'm sorry, you had the app. Let me back
yeah,
up.
so looks like they're selling the Voltron Classic Black Lion action figure for $52. And allegedly, it's like at my local Target store. It's in stock. I could pick it up tomorrow
Just
if I
the
want
black
to.
lion?
Just a black one. But they also, I see on the app through like a link, it was like I could buy. That's $52. I could get the green lion for 20.
Yeah, the
So it
green
makes
lion
you
would be
wonder.
smaller.
Unfortunately, these are the only two that like I was even seeing available.
Mm-hmm.
But assuming that's true, $52 for like the black lion.
The blue and the
if
yellow
the-
would be 35, I bet.
You think so?
30 or 35 because they would be they're a size between the red and the green and the black.
True.
So they would probably be in that 30 to 35 range, I would bet.
That would mean to get the whole Voltron, it would be probably close to $200.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a
it's
bit
a
much.
little
If they're really
pricey.
big, I guess it would be okay.
My
We'll see.
I got, because it periodically goes on sale for like $30. One year for Christmas, I got my boys a classic Megazord that does disassemble down into the individual Zords, which was pretty cool. They really like that. They don't care about Power Rangers, all right? Like I've let them watch it a couple of times to see what they thought. They care. They don't give a rip about the Rangers. They're waiting for the giant stompy robots to show up. They want Megazords. They want BattleTech mechs. They want stompy robot all the time, no question.
Who doesn't love big giant stompy robot?
I know, right? Except my oldest doesn't. My oldest wanted to play BattleTech with me, so I set up the Alpha Strike, which is like playing with I was playing it with him with super simplified rules, no special anything like that. And every time we get to the end, he gives up and quits because he's like, "Well, you're gonna win," and I'm like, "Dude, this is a dice game. We don't know what's gonna happen. Both of our mechs might blow up and fall over, and we might both lose. We don't know." But he hasn't finished a game with me yet.
You could try classic Voltron with them. They might like that.
I may. If it's... if how can I best put this? With a potential announcement involving a streaming service and an interest that would... and you know, a show that might interest the three of us, I may be dropping a streaming service for another streaming service soon. But we'll see. Because I don't use the... Why is it that they can't make a Fire Stick that has enough memory to actually put like the mainstream streaming apps on?
Yeah, I was gonna say if you're also looking, most of Transformers, like the original Transformers, on YouTube, on like from Hasbro. If you wanna If you want to
Okay.
get them watching classic stuff.
Well,
So I'm gonna actually throw up an app that I know friend of the show, Christy Petrillo, loves, but Tubi.
Yeah.
okay.
Tubi, I fell off it, but last year when my youngest daughter was born, and I had some time off for like paternity leave, I started like rewatching the original Transformers, and I didn't get too far, and so I don't exactly recall how much of the original series they have on there, but they had at least probably like the first season. And I was watching a bunch of that. So like that's at least on Tubi. And as far as I recall, Tubi is free. I think they do have like I think you if you want to like save your progress, meaning like if you're halfway through an episode to like say and you want to watch the rest of it later, like to save that space versus like you have to start everything over again. You do need to sign up for like a Tubi account, but it's again free. It's like it doesn't cost anything. I think they probably make money through ads or whatever, but it's like, well, it's free. So you're not paying like 10, $20 like you do every other streaming service. So they have at least that. So I mean, I don't know if it's free on Brad on YouTube
Yeah, it
or if
is.
you have to pay for it.
I think
Oh, it
I
is.
watched
Okay,
a
well,
bunch of it on YouTube.
I'll try and remember.
yeah, either way, but I mean, Tubi, I think I have the Tubi app on my phone. Like Tubi's easily accessible.
There's
Makes
a
sense
lot
to
of
me.
real Ghostbusters is accessible too if you want to try and get them down that rabbit hole early.
I think yeah, that's actually a good one to watch. I have that I think all on DVD.
Yeah. Honestly, Thundercats is a good one too.
Yeah, I watched Thundercats about that age, so I
Yeah.
have to think about it.
I love Thundercats. The outtakes are quite funny.
Oh, are they? Are they?
Yeah,
I
there's a
didn't
lot
realize
of
there were.
oh, they're very very dirty in those. They've asked them about that.
So by the way, Brad, just to amuse you, I had someone send me where someone posted it on Instagram the Jim Ross and Michael Hayes during the commercial break discussion.
That one oh, I love that one. That it's fun to see them having fun.
Yeah,
With it.
I think that's what the feels like. It gets lost sometimes in a bunch of wrestling stuff. Is people just not having fun with what's going on, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah, I agree.
anyway, that's beside the point.
I would say I'd say for my action figure wrestling promotion, it would have been Optimus Prime. I don't know if I did a lot of cross like battling with my toys. I might have had GI Joe and Transformers Interactor. I know my GoBots and my Transformers did like crossover because they were the same concept.
So I need clarification on this. Like, did you
Mhm.
actually there? Because a lot of these toys didn't have like necessarily great articulation in
Oh,
terms of like
no.
moving about, whatever. So when you like, are you saying like, oh, Optimus Prime would be like my number one? It's like, did you actually do wrestling matches with them, or is just
No,
like
I wasn't
Optimus
like
Prime was like my favorite? So in
I
a
wasn't like
hypothetical
really
wrestling promotion,
I didn't really get into like wrestling until a lot like until I was a teenager. So the concept
oh,
of
I see.
like a wrestling promotion wouldn't have existed. So like in the theoretical sense, it would have been Optimus Prime. Like I might have done some like stuff with GI Joe
Mhm.
because like I did like I was into the idea of like the Mattel WWE figures back then, but like I had no reason to get them. Well, I guess like I might have done like I don't think I would have done like a wrestling promotion, but like my Ninja Turtles would have been well worn in the battle concept.
So I didn't get into wrestling really until like the early 90s, but I did see some wrestling in like the 80s, which was basically like WWF like Saturday Night's Main Event. And I didn't really get it. I wasn't really super a fan, but it was kind of cool. And I remember back in the day I did have a couple of the old like the classic, oh God, who did that? But the old rubber big giant
Oh, the
like 12
LJNs.
LJN, yeah, the big giant 12-inch like wrestling figures. I had Hogan, And I think it had King Kong Bundy, which King Kong Bundy, like that's become like a joke too. But it was such a huge chunk of rubber, and it was heavy and thick. Like you could have taken that like by his leg and like used it to bludgeon someone over the head with it. But oh, did I have Bundy? No, I didn't have Bundy. I actually had Big John Stud.
Some of those are
And
worth. Some of those are worth some serious cash now.
They're worth money. And if you go to like conventions, even like just like the occasional like comic book convention that someone will sell toys, you can oftentimes find some of those guys. Like since then I've acquired like a couple more. No, I don't have like a ton. I have like 4 maybe.
If I was a rich man, if I was a rich man, I'd get the Remco AWA figures.
Mm-hmm. Another podcast, Fully Posable, which I've talked about before. They follow us on Twitter, but they have a podcast that's devoted to like primarily wrestling toys. And they're serious. I mean, they're to the point. It's like, oh, like there's been stories on their show about how it's like, oh yeah, I worked out a deal. Like I went to like Vegas or something and worked out a deal where I got, this whole collection of like rare Jack specific figures that they put out, 15, 20 years ago. And I worked out a deal with the guy to like buy his collection of it. Like that's how serious they are as like collectors. But they talk about getting the Remco. They had Remcos back in the day. Like they're a little bit probably older than we are. They're like in their 40s. And they have talks about how like back in the day, like their parents got them that. They kind of like started them down the road.
Well, I mean,
and they had like all of those LJN figures, and then they had like I think the who made the ones, the WWF ones? Was it Hasbro? It made the early 90s ones.
Mattel. No, might have been
Mattel?
Hasbro. Might have been Hasbro.
I think it was Hasbro.
No, I think it was Mattel.
I'm going to say LJN just to make things more confusing.
If you don't know what
it was Hasbro. Okay. It was Hasbro. It was the ones that had like limited articulation, but they did have like an action thing. It's like Hulk Hogan. I had a couple. I had a Hulk Hogan where it's like he could like gorilla press slam, and that's really all he did. Like the arms went up and down. Like that's it.
I bought a couple on eBay at some point, but I didn't have anyone like fancy. I had like the cheapo ones. I think some of those were even expensive back in the day, like some of the later ones. I was gonna say if you're wondering what the Remco AWA ones are, they're essentially they're He-Man figures just repurposed as wrestling, like is what they are. They're He-Man figures.
If people who know like the original He-Man line, they've actually been putting out basically new versions of the He-Man line
with a little more articulation and stuff. Yeah,
a little more articulation, but they have 2 sets. They have the ones that's like based on the Netflix show, which are like more modern and very articulated and like the 6-inch scale. But they've essentially been last like few years having like re-releasing with more articulation, almost like duplicate molds of the original He-Man design. Which, if you don't know what I'm talking about, like you have to just see it. But they're really like the human body does not get as like ridiculously jacked.
Very
as
little
these figures
legs.
Are. Yeah. They're figures that if these individuals were like alive, they would have like 0% body fat. It's like just muscle on muscle.
I still think there's
like that SNL skit, How Much You Bench, where it's the huge upper body sitting in the chairs with the tiny legs.
I think there's an argument. I mean, we'd have to debate it, but I would say there's an argument that Masters of the Universe is the greatest toy line to ever exist.
It's really fun. And talking about, again, I prefaced this a minute ago about I didn't get into wrestling in the 90s, but I did watch a little bit of it. So back in the day, like I actually had a ton. There's probably 3 toy lines I really, really collected and got into. But I'll talk about the first one. It was He-Man. I had like a ton of He-Man figures. I actually did use He-Man as like, kind of like, I didn't really understand wrestling, but I did have like battles with my He-Man guys.
Mine was the one that I had a lot of were the Super Friends. And so I had lots of Super Friends. I had the carrying case for it. I had the Hall of Justice. I had Superman's plane, the Batmobile
in the Hall of Justice.
The Batmobile, the Wonder Woman walker, because I guess.
I mean, they didn't have the audacity to sell you her invisible plane, which was just nothing in a box.
You can get one now. It's clear. It's a clear plastic plane in a box.
That's funny.
In the style of the old stuff. There was the Bat Sub, which was like this globe thing.
Weren't they the because the last series they did of Super Friends, they rebranded it to like the Superpowers team. Were they
the Superpowers Challenge?
Yeah, so I had a lot of this, but I think they were branded as like the Superpowers team because I had a lot of the Batman. Like I had Batman and Robin off of that. I didn't have like a lot of the other ones, but I had like the Batman stuff.
I had Batman, Robin, Joker, Penguin, Green Lantern, Superman, Doctor Fate, Wonder Woman.
I think they had a Riddler in there.
Aquaman. I don't think I had a Riddler. Hawkman. I remember Hawkman because it was really hard to get him to fit into the carrying case in his spot.
I only had a few. I had like Flash, Superman, Joker.
Flash, yeah.
But one of the ones I did have, we've actually mentioned this before. I had like the 1980s metallic like Terminator skull Brainiac.
Brainiac, yeah.
Like the 1980s version of Brainiac where he looked like he looked like the Terminator robot, which I'm sure was like probably inspired by that design. But he had like an actual like brain.
Yeah.
Like,
I like that one.
He looked almost demonic. Like he was scary because it's like it's essentially like
evil.
It's like a skeleton, like a robotic skeleton.
Do you remember they used to have toys like I don't think they do it anymore, but like it'd be an action on some of them where you'd like do the thing and they'd like spark and then like it would smell like burning. I'm like, wow, that's kind of unsafe. I wonder how they
But to go back to He-Man, He-Man had a lot of figures that it was like very basic things like that, but it did have it. Like there's a character called Cobra Khan, which it's like the chest was a little bit hollow. It was like he was like a reptile, a serpent type of humanoid. But his head, you could take his head off his body, and there was like a little reservoir in the body, like a cavity. You could put a little bit of like tap water in there, in there. And the head, it's like a head, and inside it had a mouth that was like almost like a suction, like not suction, but it's like this. And really, it was like effectively like the tip of a spray bottle. And the head would come off, and at the end of the head, like where it would go into that body cavity, was like effectively almost like a little straw or mechanism. And you could put the water in there, put that in there, and push the head down. And it was like your soap dispenser. It was just it would spit out, but it would spit it out like a water bottle, but it was set to essentially like a mist, so it would like spit out a mist. And it's supposed to be like he's spitting like acid mist or
remember there
mist
was
into He-Man's face. And this is the dumbest thing, but as a kid you're like, this is so awesome. Cool. Yeah.
Remember that the best one was I don't remember his name, but he was like a skunk and his figure smelled.
Skunkor.
Yeah, Skunkor. I was gonna,
Stinkor. It was Stinkor.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually I don't know why I know this. If you ask me certain things to repeat, name all things that actually should matter to me. Like it's like name all American presidents. Like I can't do I can't do that.
That's boring.
But if you're like, why did Stinkor, the He-Man toy, smell? And it's because they actually, I know this is like the random piece of worthless knowledge I know. It's because when they made the plastic, they actually like mixed the plastic for the mold with, I think, patchouli oil, and they put it in that, and then and what I've heard, and I think it's I'm actually going to assume this is true, that here it is like 30 something years after they produced those figures, that allegedly like they still smell kind of.
Well, that makes sense.
Sometimes I know.
I'm sure if you kept it like in decent shape, if you're like one of those like you abused the hell out of your action figures, you left them in the lawn for like 6 months.
I know on
picked them up and they're covered in dirt.
I know in Toy Federation, he just did one recently where they brought in like original strawberry shortcake toys, and they still had the smell. I don't know how they pulled that off because I think those were fabric, and I think them still having the smell to them is like actually not like common.
So I need to go. I'm sorry. I know I'm dragging us back over to the topic I was on, but just running. It was the the thing I had was the Superpowers toy line.
Yeah, I remember that. That was pretty
Okay.
big for through the late 80s, I'd say. Up till like cuz I know I had a lot of those mixed in like especially the Batman ones were big when like 89 Batman came out
Mm-hmm.
cuz I think
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember those too. So here's what I can run through like the list that I did have and didn't have. So all of Series 1 I did have. Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, Flash, Robin, Hawkman, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Lex Luthor, Brainiac, Joker, and Penguin.
oh, everyone had
Okay.
that. Everyone had that Lex Luthor
Yeah.
in his
Oh,
Power
that is great.
Hour toy.
Series
Yeah, the
2.
power suit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Series 2. And I had Green Arrow, Red Tornado, Dr. Fate, Martian Manhunter, and Firestorm, and Mantis. But I did not have Darkseid, Steppenwolf, Calabac, Parademon, or Desaad, which makes me kind of sad in hindsight. Series 3, this one kind of kills me because there was Samurai, Mr. Miracle. I did have Plastic Man, because whenever you would squeeze Plastic Man's arm, his head would shoot up. He had the elongated neck,
That's-
which was a great gimmick.
Wow.
Freeze, Tier, and then Orion,
Damn.
Cyclotron, Golden Pharaoh, Cyborg, and they had a Shazam that I didn't know
Big
existed
Captain
until
Marvel.
2 years ago.
I remember
Yeah.
the Shazam. I
Look,
remember the
there's some-
Shazam from the time.
There's almost some deep cuts to this, Shad. I'm just
I know.
looking at this.
I know it's pretty
I-
cool.
I didn't even know that they had those like level of figures.
Yeah,
Do you remember?
Mantis,
what?
like that's
Brad, did you mention someone mentioned Riddler? Like that Riddler doesn't even look to be like it was produced in America. It looks like it was like
yeah.
I think I had a Riddler from
insane.
something.
No, there was not a Riddler in the 3 series. There was an unofficial Riddler series.
Did they have a
Released in Colombia, yeah.
Did they have a Super Apache Chief?
They had Samurai, Mr. Miracle, Plastic Man, Freeze, Tier, Orion, Cyclotron, Golden Pharaoh, Cyborg, Shazam. They did. I don't.
You know, this is just reinforcing
Did
that.
not see one.
This is just reinforcing that lawsuit against them for racial discrimination. Because I don't see Black Vulcan on there either, and he wanted
No,
to be
that's true.
Superbolt.
That's
Because they always paired him up with a white super friend because they thought he was just going to start super looting if he was left to his own devices.
oh god.
That's probably the best episode of Harvey Birdman.
Okay, next convention I go to, my goals not in box, but I'm gonna find myself
oh
a superpowers challenge. I'm gonna find myself a Darkseid and a Shazam figure is what I'm gonna do.
mint on card. You probably
No, I don't want mint on card. I don't.
Yeah.
No.
I
Look,
see.
I've had people give me stuff that I still have in the packaging. It just sits on the shelf. It doesn't do anything.
That's the thing. They're I'm sure like Justin, friend of the show, Justin, you could tell you, like I'm sure there are people collectors who would like cringe, but it's like a lot of times if I get stuff, it's like one, I don't have space to like have stuff mint on card really. I have like a few, but it's like it's very special things. It's like
Mhm.
I have this Sting figure mint on card, but I had him sign it. So it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna tear that
Yeah.
apart. But a lot of times it's like I'll take them out because I have like for like wrestling figures, I have like the ring. It's like, all right, I'm gonna pose them in the ring,
Mhm.
have them set like, but and stuff like that. But otherwise, it's like I don't have space for that, so I don't
It
mint on
takes
card.
up
But
so much space if they're still on
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
card. I only have two
And-
AEW figures. I have Sting and I have Eddie Kingston. Those are the two I have.
I made a decision that I'm not buying AEW figures because I do not want to open that Pandora's box. That's not going to happen. But people get me Shazam stuff all the time. So if I look up here in this particular part of my desk, I have the Hallmark Shazam ornament that I kept in there. The only Funko Pop I own is a classic Shazam. There is a DC Universe Shazam figure back there. There's the Alex Ross Justice. And there is the DC Hot Wheels movie tie-in Shazam car that I have next to my animated series Batmobile. Otherwise, I don't want mint and box stuff. Don't give me that. That's
Chad,
Me.
you do know that like McFarlane Toys has been doing new versions of the DC Superpowers line.
I do actually. I had bought them for my boys.
Oh yeah,
Okay, I've
Mr.
I've
Some
seen
Mr.
a
of them.
bunch. I've seen them in a lot of them in the stores, not every single one. But looking at the list of some of the ones he's done,
Mm-hmm.
there is like some of the classic versions.
Mm-hmm.
Like he has a classic version of Batman, classic version of Robin, Superman.
Mm-hmm.
But he's actually doing some interesting stuff. Like he's done some stuff. It's like it's topical to make sense. Like he has like 2 or 3 figures from the John Cena
Peacemaker.
Peacemaker series.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has like I think at least 2 or 3 figures of like those characters. But he does like really more obscure ones like Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, which I know they
He did
did
the
in
Batman that laughs, which is a good one. I was
Mm-hmm.
gonna say with
oh yeah,
with
yeah.
his superpowers ones, I think they're like $10. But if you go to Mr. Beefy's channel, which is Beefy Bites, he opens a lot of those with his son. So there you can get a good look at them over there. They're pretty cool, I think, for the price.
I had gotten for my boys a Superman, a Batman, a Green Lantern. I had not gotten them a Dark Side. I did get a Flash and a Deathstroke. I think Christmas this year I will probably get them a Batwing that they had. Those are, but $30. They do have the clear plastic invisible jet, which is awesome. Wave 6 has a gold suit Batman. Wow. Okay, I didn't. Oh, those must be there's a Kilowog in here, a Blue Beetle, a Sinestro, a Brainiac Skull Ship.
Is it the Ted Kord Blue Beetle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
Booster Gold Guy Gardner. Kingdom Come Super. Is that Kingdom Come Superman? It looks like it. Maybe it's not.
Is it
Yeah.
Justice Lord? It's
I
he did do a Justice Lord's version of Superman.
Okay. It's well it okay, when you say Justice Lords I think of the animated series version, but okay, yeah, I see them at Walmart, so yeah, come towards the end of the year I'm gonna have some shopping to do. But anyway, sorry.
They're pretty cool. They're interesting. I just in general like about McFarlane toys, like I don't collect them, and I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole. But he actually
Keeps the prices
his,
down.
his McFarlane's DC figures are largely like really interesting. They're like well sculpted,
Mm-hmm.
very well sculpted. So it's obviously a lot of classic figures, but it's also a lot of really not obscure. They're kind of more like for the last like comic books in the last like few years, but really interesting design sometimes.
He's kind
Like
of the
really
innovator
fun.
though of like the like the buying figures to like show because like in the 90s like I mean he still puts out Spawn toys, but those Spawn toys were like the coolest thing ever. Like I even got into them
Oh
for
yeah.
a while. And
Oh, I remember back in the day, like no one had like the level of like the
detail
sculpt he did were the detail. Like the sculpts were really good, like really detailed.
looked
Like
like exactly like the character in the comic stuff.
yeah. But I so people who weren't back in the day or didn't collect back in the day, and I never actually collected the Spawn toys
I did
because I was
for a
older at that
couple years.
point.
That was like my last gasp of like, because it was those and was it Kenner that was doing the Star Wars toys like in the
Yeah.
late 90s?
For the prequels?
No, before
Rough
that.
pre-
I got out of it
Oh,
when the
yeah,
prequels hit.
I think it was Kenner. I never collected that stuff either,
I did. I was all in on those because those were like they were getting like I even bought like extra Jawas, so I had extra Jawas about and stuff. And yeah, those were a lot of fun.
But Todd, for those who don't know, like back in the day, it's like he was putting out stuff that was way more detailed in terms of like the sculpts than like anyone. So it was almost like revolutionary for like the industry of like of action figure or toy collecting. And I will say like again, like the sculpts that he does for the DC stuff nowadays. I mean the Spawn stuff he does too, but I'm talking about specifically like the DC universe stuff because he has like a ongoing license and they put out new figures all the time. But it's really good in terms of like sculpts, and it generally, like, you're right, Brad. Like, it's curiously like the prices are like cheap,
He still
and I say
keeps
that
it
because like
around 20, I think, because
it's like around 20. Maybe it might creep up a little more, but oftentimes it is
because
like 20.
the Hasbro went. I think in the 2 years I collected that Marvel Legends, it went from $17 to $22, and I got out before they went to 25.
Oh, I was collecting that, and I actually have quite a few figures. For like a couple years, I was collecting like the Marvel Legends stuff. So I have like a box full of like figures. So I probably have like a few dozen. But I stopped because when I started doing it, it was like around like 20, and you could get it for less than that sometimes if it's
If
like
you waited, yeah, and you waited for an
if you
Amazon
waited,
deal.
yeah, Target, like you get a Target and it's like maybe this wave of stuff you didn't buy right away or you were like on the fence about, but they discount it because like it wasn't stuff that people were like gobbling up. So
Yeah.
this figure that was 20, like maybe now it's like they're discounting it to get rid of the stock. So now you can get the figure for like $10, $12 or something. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll buy it. So I got quite a few figs, but then when they started creeping up, and when I didn't really, I had kind of like slowed down to stop. It had to be like very special for me to get it, but it got up to like $26. And I think it stayed there
It still
really.
is, yeah. And they're also like
And I was like, no,
they'll be
yeah,
like, oh, this figure's $35, and it's like, why? And
yeah,
it's like, oh, because it has the accessories that we used to put in the box when it was $20. Like, okay.
yeah, no,
And they're honestly
you,
like the Hasbro stuff, like the quality's terrible. The articulation just sucks. Like it's really articulated, but the figures are so stiff it barely works. Like when I got my Sting AEW figure, like he works so much better than theirs do. Plus, they love selling you just like lazy repaints. Like there's one they did of Cyclops recently, and I looked at him like, you just barely repainted a figure you tried to sell. You sold me 3 years
oh,
ago.
that was towards the end where I was like slowing down and then eventually stopped collecting. I started noticing that literally like half the figures they were putting out, it's like you would look at the figure, just you don't have to spend like I'm gonna analyze this figure for like an hour. You really could just look at this figure for like two minutes and be like, okay, so they just did like new sculpts of the arms and the head,
Or
but
if,
basically the body and legs are like the same
or
figure they put out
if it was a
5 times
woman,
in the last like month.
yeah, or if it was
So it's like,
if it was a
yeah,
woman, it
no,
was just the same model, like reconfigured to
yeah,
like um look different with the
yeah,
same face every time. So it's like, why does Scarlet
yeah.
Witch and Emma Frost look like so similar? But yeah, they're really lazy. And like, if you go to the Star Wars, like half the stuff they release is some variation of a stormtrooper because they don't have to do anything, and they've paid for it pretty heavily. Because I
Or a
think
clone trooper, yeah.
because it was funny when we got out. Like, it's a good YouTube channel, like Toy Federation, because it's a guy that runs a toy shop, and it's them like doing
Mm.
trade-ins and stuff. But it was right like when you and I had started bitching about it, and they were talking about on the show. He's like, yeah, like like GI Joe's the only line where they don't seem to have pissed everyone off yet, and I feel like GI Joe they're trying their hardest to because they're just flooding the market with product on GI Joe. Because
Oh, so
they even have like another Sergeant Slaughter, and they just did a Sergeant Slaughter like 2 years ago.
you know what though? I'm gonna buy that one because he's in his Slaughters Marauders
Oh,
paint
that's
sculpt,
funny.
and it's like goddamn. So my favorite toy line of all time. I've mentioned this before. We even did an entire show on GI Joe, just in general GI Joe. But my favorite toy line of all time was GI Joe, and so I have been pretty like hardcore. Have collected the GI Joe classified line. I have. It's been going on now for a few years, but of the dozens of figures they put out, I probably have most of them. I will say, well, most of them from now until let's say like the last 6 months or so, because that they are pissing me off and collectors off, where it's like they put out a lot of stuff because that's people are buying that and it's selling. So
Like, and when we say a lot, like, there's points where they'll announce like 20 figures within like a month.
yeah, and it's like if that's it's frustrating because it's like if they're announcing like 20 figures that are if it was like okay we're doing this on August 27th. If like tomorrow, August 28th, they're doing like they come out with like a little video or something, a live cast on YouTube. It's like we're gonna release these 20 figures as like an announcement. Get excited, we're gonna release these over the next year. It's like, oh, okay, that's really cool. They would do like release 20 figures, and it's like, oh, that's cool. And it's like, and pre-orders start tomorrow for all of them. And it's like, God damn it. Like, I don't have the money for that.
And then you'll pay
So
for all
I
that, and
collect
it'll
them.
be like, surprise, it's a HasLabs for a vehicle for $300.
Well, yeah, they have one for the Rattler right now, which I haven't funded it, but if I would consider funding it if before it ends, they actually like have all the figures. Because I like the figures more than I like the stuff, like the vehicles, everything like that. But they're frustrating me, Shad, because I collect stuff, and then it is that where it's like they put out a lot of stuff at once, and your choices are to either like I'm gonna sit on this, in which case some of the stuff does sell out, or it's like I'm gonna wait on this, and when I have the money, like I'll order this like 3-4 months down the road. I'll order these like figs or whatever. So it's a little frustrating because I will say this about the line is that it's supposed to be 6-inch. It's actually I think a little bit less than 6-inch because if you take like a GI Joe classified figure and you put them up against like a 6-inch like AEW figure or WWE Elite figure,
Yeah.
like the WWE or AEW figures is like a little bit taller, and they're supposed to be 6-inch too. So either the GI Joe figures are really 6-inch, and the wrestling stuff is like 7-inch really,
Yeah.
or GI Joe is like a little bit smaller. I guess point is like it's in like the 6-inch scale, and the sculpts and articulation on them are actually really, really good, like exceptionally good. The only real gripe besides the whole like we're gonna put out like a dozen figures at once. Oh, and by the way, we're gonna pull that like every other month, which you roll your eyes about. But
Oh no, I know it's there. It's just flooding the market is greedy as hell.
it is, but they're doing it because one, it's Hasbro. So there's 4 main lines that Hasbro has. It's GI Joe, it's Transformers, it's Star Wars, and it's Marvel Legends. Marvel Legends and Star Wars are not really doing well.
Transformers,
But Transformers,
they've kind of pissed people off because they're just releasing lazy repaints as like new figures.
yes, Transformers, but Transformers does still sell reasonably well. But GI Joe is like probably one of, if not the most of
And
their
they followed
of the 4
up
brands, like probably the most successful one.
And they followed up a super popular Transformers line with like a really lazy one. Like they came off of like it was like a Beast Wars / regular Transformers like crossover. So like you had all these classic Beast Wars figures getting re-releases. And then you had like a lot of classic Transformers coming out, and then they did this weird like, oh, here's Blaster, except he's gray and blue, and it's like, who wants gray and blue Blaster?
Don't you want the awesome recolor? Like and it's like, no.
And their quality control's really bad. Like they released like a Galvatron that was just straight up busted.
I think I know the gray and blue one you're talking about, because it actually I don't think it was supposed to be Blaster. It was like a different character.
Yeah. It was.
So I have a friend who's like hardcore collects like Transformers.
That is an
like
addiction, and it's a rabbit hole of collecting.
If you go, because he has like, if you go into his office, he has like a home office because he like works from home. If you go into his office, and he doesn't have like a giant room, but he has like, I have this in my room, like one of those big like honeycomb IKEA bookcases. It's like just full of Transformers, and I mean, I'm not talking about like here's like a little cubby of my favorite Transformers toys. It's like here is every shelf full of like, it's just dozens of Transformers. It is a rabbit hole that he's And it's not just like modern stuff. It's like the original, like, G1 line stuff. But to go back to classified, the other criticism, Shad, beyond like them putting out too many figures at once, is that the plastic a lot of times is really stiff on them. And I've heard like you can actually get around that.
Yeah, but you have
if
to
you,
like
and I know
boil them
I've
in
tried
water.
this. Yes, people say that. You boil them in water, and I've tried that because it's like, well, I don't want to damage the figure. So you actually don't really boil it. You just like you boil water, and then when the water temperature like drops down where it's not going to like damage the figure, but it's still warm, you
Yeah.
can submerge the figure in it,
remold
and
them a
pull it
little
out, and like the heat will, loosen up the plastic. I haven't tried that because it's like I'm not gonna really be playing with these, but it is like if you have them and you want to articulate them in like a diorama or something,
Well, I think
it is tough. Where it's like I want them to hold a gun, and I don't want it to be like straight arm. I want them to kind of just crook the arm this way, and I fear I'm gonna snap the arm in two because the plastic is so. And it's not every single one of the figures.
It's
but
most
sometimes,
though, and it's hard to get them to stand properly. That's a real problem. Which like I said, I got the AEW ones and they're fine. But the other thing that hurt them, and they went back on that. That didn't last long. I think 1 or 2 lines did it, but they did this. Hey guys, we're gonna be more environmentally friendly, so that means you can't see the action figure anymore. And so they did these ones that they just did like a computer generated like image of the picture. But the problem is, so you could steal the figures real easy or swap them. But the other thing is like
that happened to me. That happened to me once. It hasn't happened, but I did that. I bought it and then I took it home and I opened it and someone had literally done that. They'd swapped the figure. And with like I think it was like a Marvel Legends Red Skull figure. And I'm like, what the fuck is this shit?
Yeah.
I wanted like Python Crimson Guard figure, but and I actually immediately texted friend of the show, Christy Petrillo, because he like collects some of these G.I. Joe stuff or some obviously like WWE Elite and some of these other figures. And I'm like, God damn, they got me. The scalpers like got me. He's like, oh man, that sucks.
So do you want to know my greatest story ever of making a quick buck? So there's like a bulk buy place that's by my old house.
Ollie's.
No.
I think right.
No, this is an independent place. So they buy like pallets of stuff from like Walmart and Target. So you never know what they're gonna have. So every weekend it changes. So sometimes you might get like, oh, they have a microwave that's half off. So you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes they have toys. So, and Matt benefited from this, but I went in once, and I don't know how they had them, but they just had like a wall of this Cobra Trooper that was like impossible to get. Like I stumbled into like 20 of these fuckers, and they were like they were like the thing to get, and they're $10. So I bought like everything they had. So I start messaging all these guys. Okay, I've got these guys. Like, how many do you need? Like, I will, it's $10 plus shipping. So I think Chris got like 3 from me. Matt got 1. Someone else got 1 from me. And then, so the rest that were like in okay shape, those went on Facebook Marketplace for $70.
Yeah.
And I got rid of all of them
in a weekend. Right. In a weekend, they were all gone. No, I might have sold for 80.
That figure at that time was going for like for 70. That was probably like a steal because I think
I did. I undercut. They were going for like I think I sold them for 80. They were going for like $100, and I think I sold them for like 80.
Yeah, I recall like they were at least going for like $100 at the time because you could not find them. Anywhere.
Like people were straight up like just tripping over themselves, and they were happy to pay me for that because they were saying, and they'd even be like, "Would you take 70 for this?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." But I remember I sent Matt a picture. I'm like, "Are these the ones that are really rare?" And he's like, "Yes." I'm like, "Okay, well," I bought like 30 of the damn things, and like it was super rare, and I got them for $10 each. Like I made a killing on this.
Brad was fair to me. He didn't charge me $70 or $80. He was just like, it cost me this much, like, and it's gonna cost me this much. I'm like, there you go.
I bought the standard prepaid, so I think it was like $25 for Matt because it was the price of the figure plus shipping, which I think that's kind of the agreed upon. Like if you're into that, like with your friends, that's kind of the agreed upon like trade is
well again
MSRP plus shipping.
The podcast and the guys that like follow us on Twitter. Like, and I've actually met I don't know why I didn't say this part, but like I've met them more than once because they've actually gone to wrestling events. I've met them with friend of the show, Christy Petrillo, because he actually like connected me with them. And they actually, it's two brothers, and they are really great guys. They live out in California. But their motto, the Fig Life, that's like the hashtag. The Fig Life motto is for collectors who are helping other collectors. It's like the mantra is cost plus shipping. So it's like who need like I've actually seen on Twitter like there are people who like they'll go in Target and it's like they'll take pictures. I know a guy like he takes pictures of what's in stock at Target or Walmart, whatever. He's like, and he'll post it up on Twitter, and he'd be like, "This is the stock like anyone need." And he'll either grab it if people respond like while he's in the store, or maybe he'll go back the next day, whatever. But if someone's like, "Oh man, I need that figure," he'll be like, he'll get it. And I actually like once or twice I've actually gotten figures from people that way. I'm like, hey, like you said you had these figures, you took a picture of these figures, like I kind of need that figure. I haven't done it in a long time. But I'm like, I need that figure. And he's like, yeah, like it's gonna cost me this much in the store, and let me work out the shipping. And the shipping is always reasonable.
You can
Like
get
I don't think I ever had to pay too much.
and you can go to the post office and they sell bulk. They're just like preset rate boxes. If you can get it in that box, it is that price. And they're
Flat rate
Yeah.
mailers.
yeah, and Shad knows because he's dealt with me before. Like you never know what you're gonna get in a box from me because I just toss like random stuff. I'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, I got space. Because I know.
Oh my God, Brad! I have given away like 3 boxes of stuff that you gave me in that last shipment.
Well, like Chad Olson, there on the Uncharted Territory podcast, I had sent him these old wrestling programs I had. And like I just had space in there, and I chucked micro brawlers in there. I think he got like my extra copy of like the Champions Carnival. I think like I threw some shirts in there, and like he opened it on a show, and they were just like, oh, like he threw all this extra stuff in there. I think they auctioned some of the programs off at the Thez Trago Hall of Fame for like a fundraiser.
That's really cool.
But I had like there were some autographs in like the world class ones I sent, and but yeah, if you get a package from me, like there's always extra goodies. Like I think I sent Shad like a Funk University sticker. You got a. Did I send you the Four Faces of Foley shirt I had?
Yeah, I've
Okay.
got that upstairs.
Yeah, Shad bought all my. I'm downsizing, and Shad got like. I would say would say like a metric crapload of BattleTech stuff
Yeah.
be fair?
Yep, that'd be accurate. It was actually nice because some of the things that I got from you are I had extra copies of, so I was able to turn around and give them to one of my best friends as like a birthday gift. I'm just like, hey, dude, we've been playing Alpha Strike a little bit. Have your own mix.
I think
Get back into it, you know.
I think I got. I think I had a Marauder for you, didn't I, or a Marauder 2 in one of the blind boxes?
Yes. Yeah, one of the salvage boxes has Natasha Kerensky's Marauder for her time as the Black Widow in the Mercenary Company in it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've got them all set. I've got my BattleTech shelves sitting up here because, yeah, I got me lots of mechs.
Yeah. And you got a couple technical readouts. Those are always fun.
Oh yeah, those are right here in arm's length. Which shelf did I put them on though? Which shelf did I do that? Oh God, this was gonna be cool, and now I don't remember which shelf I put. Oh, here they are. Yeah. So yes, no, it's very cool, and there's a map pack. So.
Oh, that's the Battle of Tukid, isn't it?
Tukid?
Yeah.
That whole giant planetary awesome.
Yeah.
Tex has a great video that's just about Tukid. It's only about a half hour, but
Yeah, people complained that was like Deus Ex Machina, but I'm like, no, like if you look at the fall of the clans, going off on like a tangent here, but they were always going to lose because they were not built for what they were doing at all. They were not built to occupy territory, and they were going to stretch themselves too thin eventually. And a lot of
their own culture was going to work against them in this.
And like part of what they did in that battle that helped them win is they would just run up and challenge them to like a blood feud, and then they would like set up to do it, and they'd be like, "Ha ha, just kidding," and like blow them
Yeah.
up.
They would yeah, they would
Or
they
a
would
batal.
taunt them. They'd taunt the, yeah, they'd either make a batchall or they'd taunt them. They'd be like, "Oh, you got, oh," like Smoke Jaguar, I think, if I remember correctly, was the worst, because they'd be like, "Oh, oh no, oh gosh, we're almost out of, cannon ammunition over here. What are we gonna do?" And Smoke Jaguar's like, "Well, we can kill them." And they get there and like, "By the way, we use all energy weapons in this group."
Yeah, and the other thing, Matt, the other reason they lost is so the clans, the way they do it is to get honor, you like you bid for a battle, like as a commander.
Yeah.
So you try to low bid. So you're like, well, I'll do this with this much gear, and someone will be like, well, haha, like I can do this with even less gear. So they like,
It's like, I can name that tune in fewer notes
Yeah.
than you.
so they way underbid on this last battle. So they went in like totally like screwed.
Yeah, they were underbid on it, and they did not realize that the people that it was the phone company. The phone company decided to finally call them out, and they're like,
sorry.
"Oh, it's just the phone company." And what they had done is they had trained up their units to just be absolutely batshit crazy. So they're like, "Oh, okay, here, we're gonna drop these mechs. We're just gonna hover drop them out of the dropship instead of landing the dropship." And they're like, "Oh, really? Cool." And one of their pilots like rammed the cockpit of the dropship and wiped out like an entire battalion or something like that. Like they were not prepared for how crazy Comstar was. So that means that they lost the mighty glorious clans, the genetically engineered awesome mech warriors lost to the phone company.
Yeah, and if you're
Pretty great.
watching this, you can go back quite a number of weeks, and Tex was actually on our show.
Yeah. They're getting ready to release a new one, the Battle of Twycross. So
That's cool.
the new the goal was to release it yesterday, but the rendering didn't get done in time. So it'll release any day now.
I think
They have a sequence in it that has a bunch of like mech battle stills that, listen to me, Brad, this is done in 4K.
nice.
They could have taken these scenes that they did and put them on an IMAX screen, and they would have looked amazing.
That's cool.
So it's, God, it looks good.
So what was I think the other one I was gonna say, just to throw it in there, because I kind of mentioned it, but I think the one I did have like actually had vehicles of and stuff was Ninja Turtles. That was a big one for me.
Well, since I mentioned I had 3 like toy lines I really collected a lot of. This first was He-Man, the second was Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, same.
Like I had, for some reason, like that really jived with me. Maybe it was because like I love the TV show back in the day.
I
Yeah,
think
With
I
Uncle
had
Phil,
I,
James Avery as Shredder.
I think I was into
I had
them
a ton of
before the
them.
TV show though, because like they had like a commercial, but they were just cool. Like if you didn't know anything about them, like they were
They were
just
still cool.
yeah.
The I did not have vehicles, but I had so many figures. I got all the way down to like Gooey Gus and Wingnut and Screw Loose.
You know,
And,
it's funny.
Guts.
You can get
Yeah, he was like he was a trash man character
Yeah, I
who had
remember
like
him.
you could put water in this jar in his torso and stuff.
you know, you can get Wingnut and Screw Loose like the it's just a remake of that figure. You can get
Yeah.
that at like for like $10 now. Now, do you
Yeah.
remember I think he was in the same set. I do remember that guy. Do you remember the Mutagen Man?
Yeah, I remember Mutagen Man.
Yes.
And what was the gecko on the skateboard's name?
Mondo Gecko.
Yes, Mondo
I had a
Gecko.
Mondo Gecko.
You know what did piss me off though with the cartoon is they never released all the frogs. They only released
Genghis Frog.
yeah, they only released Genghis Frog.
And no, they were. I thought they had another one.
Oh, they might have had another one.
They could have had a
I don't-
Battletoads crossover.
And they never released the gray rock guy either.
That's
Yeah,
right.
they released General Trag, but they didn't release. You know, they may have released the gray one because NECA. I think it's NECA, right? Or
Yeah,
is it Super
it's
7?
NECA.
NECA has been doing like they've been doing like a Ninja Turtles line for like a few years now, which has actually like gotten kind of popular reviews. I think it's like expensive,
Oh,
Yeah.
anything
but
from
you can get a lot of those figures in Target because I've seen them there.
I'm
I
trying
think
to
he was a
remember
boss in the second NES game, wasn't he?
which one.
The gray one.
One of them. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think he was a boss.
One of them was. I don't remember which one. I know. Okay, they had the Triceratons.
Yeah, they had one. He was a fairly early one. I remember him though.
Yeah,
I had the toy of Triceraton. I know that they were like an actual species, but I had him.
Then, let's see. I'm trying to go through, remember what all. I mean, I remember having Metalhead.
Yeah.
One of the ones that I didn't have for the
Fugitoid.
longest time is I did not have just regular Shredder. Like that took me forever to
They
find.
only ever did like one Shredder. I think that was part of the problem. He was like in the first wave. Like I think Bebop and Rocksteady never got like. I had Fugitoid. Like that was one of my favorites. Was him. Then you had like the turtles in their disguises. Like I think Raphael was in like the trench coat. Then you had like the movie turtles, and then there were the ones later that like you could like transform them into a turtle.
Okay.
That might have been way later though.
I don't remember that one. Like I didn't have figures, but I didn't have vehicles, but I had figures.
I think the last wave I got was like when they had like Chrome Dome and like the bull guy in it.
Yeah, I remember having Ace Duck as well.
I didn't have the duck. I had Chrome Dome. I had the bull one, who I think was called Beefsteak.
Yeah.
Oh, he was like red.
And I did have him because I wish I still had the figure because I love the comic now. But Usagi Yojimbo got a figure. I think one of his only like merchandise. Was he in the cartoon? Did he make an appearance in the cartoon?
So I think he may have, but like maybe one episode. But I don't like firmly recall it.
Yeah,
I don't remember it.
One of his only like pieces of merchandise like that.
Yeah. Brad, they did have Genghis Frog, and then in 1990 they put out a Napoleon Bonafrog.
Oh, okay. They had such stupid names.
Yeah, but I mean, they did have two of the four frogs, the punk frogs. I had a bunch of the Playmates Turtles toys.
Yeah,
like, I collected them pretty deep.
They were massive for like a couple years.
So they also, towards the end, or like the early 90s, I felt they started putting out like wacky versions of it.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the ones they did have, they actually put out. I think they were supposed to be like the turtles as like sports.
Yeah.
Sports.
Yeah.
And so they did a Michelangelo. Michelangelo was my favorite turtle. They did a Michelangelo as a pro wrestler, and I had that figure back.
I don't think I had that one. Remember they did that
I don't think I knew that one existed.
Remember they did that with the Ghostbusters toys, like where they kind of. Like the first series was them and their stuff, but then you had like the weird like, oh, if you push this button, like they do like this freak out face.
Yeah,
you know, it's funny you say that because they actually re-released those figures.
The freak
they did, yeah.
The OG
if I could,
ones.
like, I could go to my local Target that's like a couple miles away from where I live, and they have like a couple of those figures, like the re-released ones that they're out like now. I could buy like one or two.
What do those run? I'd be kind of interested in those.
I mean, every toy nowadays, it's probably at least $20 or more.
Damn it, they're not that big.
The one that's actually, so I wouldn't get them because they're not well articulated, and I actually value articulation. But Super 7 puts out essentially like 3.5-inch scale, like, or 3 3/4 GI Joe figures now. But it's literally almost like the old school Star Wars Kenner, where it's like,
just
the arms go up and down, the legs.
Oh, they don't even have the articulation of the originals.
No.
Oh, that's lame.
And yeah, and it's those figures, because it's Super 7. It's like those figures are like $20 each, and it's like, why? Like I don't collect McFarlane DC, but if I wanted to, like, I could pay the same bucks for $20, and I can get a 6-inch figure that's incredibly well sculpted and has all sorts of articulation.
Or you can get
versus a $20 Super 7 that like barely moves.
Or you
It's
can
like
get two of
no.
the DC superpowers for $20.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it was Super 7. They did like a Defenders of the Earth line. And I wanted the Phantom because I used to love the Phantom in the newspaper. And I looked up what it was going to cost when it came out. It was $50. And he was
Oh,
only
you
like
should
a
have like
10-inch figure.
you should have told me because 10-inch figure.
Yeah.
I know that some company, I don't know if it was Super 7, but they did put out like some. I feel like it may have been Defenders of the Earth. They put out like a couple figures, and I saw them even in like Target, and they were not $50. They were a little less than that. They weren't like $10. They were at least probably 25. But I saw them at Target. And I
Did you
think I probably saw the Phantom,
did you ever get
but
those
they were not 10-inch. They were like maybe like 6-inch.
did you ever get those Power 7 figures in that they did of the wrestlers like the Larry Zbyszko, Bruiser Brody, that line?
Oh, it Power 7. I don't know if that's like but the first series I actually did get. It was like 6 figures. It was like Luthez, Kerry Von Erich, Magnum TA, Bruiser
Bruiser Brody.
Brody.
Larry Zbyszko I think had a
It was not Larry Zbyszko. I think it was Vern Gagne though.
okay.
And there was one more. Why can't I know? I haven't ordered it. And I think the pre-orders may have ended or it's close to ending. But they did a second series, which I was interested in because it was like Junkyard Dog, Medusa, and then a couple more. It was Power Town Pro
Yeah,
Wrestling.
because I know I was interested in those. I'm like, I will do it for anything if they can get it less than $35. And they came out, it was like $35 a figure. I'm like, damn it.
So I pull up an email. Power Town Pro Wrestling Series 2, which allegedly the pre-order ended on August 16th, and I didn't order it. But I remember like the first series, like I did pre-order it, but I got emails after the fact where it's like, oh, like I could have ordered it again after the fact. So I'm hoping that if I do bite the bullet on it, that I could get it again. But I also it's a cost thing. I didn't pre-order it because they have 6 figures, and it would probably cost me at least like 200, 250. And it's like I don't want to I can't spend that right now. But
Yeah.
the series 2, it's Jack Briscoe.
Does Jack Briscoe
Dory Funk,
have the half dome belt? Can you see?
I can't see.
Okay.
Oh wow. So yeah, like if I individually wanted the figures, it's $50. If I wanted the whole bundle, it's like $290.
Jesus
So
Christ! For what?
yeah, that's why I didn't
6?
get it. Like even if I get it down the road, if they offer it like a few months from now, maybe. But it's like I'd have to spend $300, and it's like they actually are decent figures, but
It's
and
not.
it's of wrestlers, old school wrestlers that they don't usually have a lot of figures of, but I don't know. But it's Jack Briscoe, Dory Funk Jr., Wahoo McDaniel, Medusa, Junkyard Dog, and the Ugandan giant, Kamala.
Mala.
Yeah.
Wahoo.
And they
Wahoo
actually
is
look, the
tempting.
picture is like it looks to be good, like good sculpts, good articulation, but it's like it's $300. It's like, it's a lot of money.
Wahoo is tempting.
Well, I mean, because he actually like, I guess signed some sort of Legends deal maybe before he died, but I actually have ordered it, but for WWE figures, they actually have made a Bruno Sammartino figure, so I actually ordered it.
Nice.
Because actually, I would like to get that one.
He just they just put out a Legends of Wrestling card for him. I don't know how they got him signed, but that's really cool. Well, I think that's about it because I am trying not to pass out right now. So it kind of
Can I add one more thing? Because I know we're trying to wrap up, so I'm not going to get into it. But I brought this out. I actually had this. I pulled this out of storage. But I had mentioned 3 figure lines that I really collected. Triple thread, like He-Man, Turtles, And the last one was, again, my favorite toy line of all time, G.I. Joe. And when I was older and I did start watching wrestling, I had all these G.I. Joes, and they had crazy articulation for like 3 3/4 inch figures. So I primarily used them as my wrestling figures. I actually did a whole G.I. Joe Wrestling Federation. And I wanted to pull this out. It's like, look at this. This
Is that booking?
full of notes of wrestling. Actually, not every single page of this like multi thing,
That's
because I didn't
nice.
finish it, but there was multiple wrestling cards that I drafted, and I actually like would play through. I didn't get to like everything, but I booked long-term booking of my wrestling federation of just GI Joe figures, and I had like favorites, like Snake Eyes, of course, was like my guy. He's like my main guy, but I had other guys I like.
You know
Sergeant
what?
Slaughter was a big time
You know what
guy.
got me down the rabbit hole of G.I. Joe? Because I got in a little later, but I don't remember what you got him free from. But the Lifeline figure you could get from like cereal box tops or something.
G.I. Joe back in the day, the original G.I. Joe was good about if you would get like they would have like on the back of like the card back, they'd have like a proof of you'd have like the UPC like proof, and you'd also have like so they would have this little square that you could like cut out with scissors that was like points. It's like you bought this like one figure that gives you like 2 points, and you could, if you collected enough points, you could then mail in that with like UPCs or something like to verify you'd actually purchase it, and you could like get that figure for free, which is really like you would just cash in the points and pay for like shipping.
Yeah.
So it wasn't free, but you could do that, and they did that with quite a few figures. They actually did it pretty reasonably. I feel like they did it at least probably once every year. They probably did something like that. So I got a couple of those figures. I don't think I got every single one from that, but I did get at least a couple. I didn't have a William the Refrigerator Perry. That was one that you actually could do that with. I did get that figure years after the fact. So I think I bought him after like off eBay or something. But
it was a mail-in. I know he was.
Yeah.
I know everyone had him because he was like free. I will say the one I don't think I've ever seen in the wild again. It was the one mail-in I got from like the catalog. Do you remember Reflector from Transformers, like the early cartoon? It was the 3 guys that formed into a camera. I had the toy of that because I did the mail-in. But like I always wanted to get the I don't remember what they called the customized G.I. Joe. That I think it was just the Iron Core guy or whatever.
Oh, Steel Brigade.
Yeah, Steel Brigade. You couldn't
customize. You could customize in the sense that like
you could name him, give him a rank, give him a branch in the military.
Yeah, you could give him like your name, like me, Matt. I'm a GI Joe.
And I think you got like you got like a patch or something with him.
Yeah, you could do something like that. Yeah,
because Slaughter was originally like the first Slaughter figure was a mail-in, and then Perry was obviously a mail-in, and I don't know who else was.
They had a Cobra Commander that had like the hood instead of like the faceplate. That was a mail-in because I had that figure for a mail-in. I think like there was like a Tripwire you could do as a mail-in. There was like a couple other ones that were mail-ins. Steel Brigade was like the big one. Super Trooper was one for like late 80s. So there was a few, I think.
Yeah, I didn't like them as much when they started getting into the 90s because like they started having like neon on them and stuff, and they got into like the weird like Drug Wars, G.I. Joe, and the Space Corps or something.
Oh,
where
Space
they
Brigade.
Had, like,
that was Space Brigade.
That's where they lost
was at the
the
very
plot.
end.
Yeah, that's where they lost the plot because that had like space aliens.
Yeah, Space Alien. They did that. That was like the last year that they really did those figures. Like the line was like discontinued after that, and then was dormant for like 5 or 6 years or so. And then like the late 90s, it actually restarted where they put out essentially repaints.
Well, no, they went from
same
the
molds.
They did that stupid. So they did after they did the bigger line. They did the G.I. Joe Extreme because it had to be the 90s,
they
which
did that.
were
And that
those are like standard
like,
6-inch figures, I think.
They're like 6-inch, but they didn't take off. And it wasn't very good.
And the cartoon sucked.
But then they started putting out essentially like for collectors in like Toys R Us. They put out a few basically like I think it was like three figure packs
Yeah, I think I
of
vaguely remember
like
those.
repaints essentially, and those sold really well. I bought like all the ones they put out because I was like, oh man, I loved like back in the day, I loved GI Joe. So at that point, I was a little bit older. I had some money, so I was like, oh, I need to buy these. So I bought them, and then they kept doing it for like a couple years. They kept doing repaints,
Well,
just putting out the same mold, but just like updated painting. And it
and
became so popular that they eventually started putting out new figures. And initially, like the first wave was like 0 O-rings, and people like complained so much. They're like, okay, we'll do new figs, new sculpts with the O-ring. And they that line ran for like
well, Piper got a
4 or 5 years.
Piper got a
He did.
mail in that line, didn't he?
I I don't think he was a mail-in so much as he was like a collector's club exclusive. But he's actually really hard to get. I think last time I looked, we actually did this. We talked about this on like the
Tim
show
brought it
about
up.
GI Joe we did with Tim. And I think when I looked, and this was like going back 3-4 years, we did that show. It's been a while. But
It was
when I
peak
looked it up,
lockdown.
yeah, when I looked it up, what was it? Maybe about 4 years, maybe like 3 years.
It was
Maybe,
20. It
'cause
was like January of 2021. I'm pretty sure.
yeah, but when I looked it up, he was at least like a couple $100, maybe a little more than that. So
And
now
all
it's
that
like I don't know if
stuff's
he's
gone way up.
yeah.
I think the
But
knockoff GI Joes are interesting.
oh,
When you-
the one they did like the 80s, the core.
yeah, but then there's like
I had some of those.
there's like the I don't know what it's called. There's like an African American like centric like knockoff that's run that still runs like and it's like been going since the 80s and like the line still comes out.
I don't recall this one.
There's a couple articles where you can look up the knockoffs because I remember in the pennies was it pennies? Yeah, the pennies wish book. There was always, and you talked about this once because you got it, but there was the like, oh, for $20 you can get like 40 knockoff GI Joes.
Oh, I mean the core.
Yeah.
That,
Oh, that
I
was
got
the
that.
core. Okay.
It was the core, and I actually did get that. And I got some of those core figures are actually fun. They weren't always great, but some of them were fun. But yeah, I had some of those.
GI Joe's a good one. Like I don't know. There's just something I don't know fun about it. And it's funny that they started off as essentially if you're younger, GI Joe's like original action line were essentially like Barbie dolls, like the original GI Joes.
Yeah, it was like 12-inch. Like
Yeah.
yeah, it was like the male equivalent of Barbie dolls.
That ran through like the 60s and 70s, I think.
Mm.
Well, I'm gonna say that's it for this week because I'm about ready to pass out. So thank you for joining us always, and join us next week because we're going to be doing Sid and ECW. I think that's going to be a fun romp because Sid and ECW is like a lot of fun. And
100%.
So that's it. As Shad would say, we've been in 3 corners. We don't count Craig, and you've been in the 4th. So thank you for watching as always, and we'll catch you next time.